Thank you. We'll ask Councilwoman Millie Conway to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And at this time, we have the roll call.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent? Mrs. Butcher-Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Hambrick? Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
We have a motion to accept the reading of the minutes from the last meeting.
Just a note, for,
I'll make a motion.
one note, please, for the record.
Okay.
There are a few of the votes last week that are listed as 8-1.
Yeah.
It should be
8-0.
0,
No said.
and I'll second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say likewise. We show of hands if you received the check registry receipts. Thank you. At this time, we'll have public comments. I just want to remind you that at this time, remember that you have 4 minutes to state what you need to state before the council. Let's please be respectful of other people's time, and we will get one opportunity to do that. So at this time, Kitty Lane.
Good evening. I just wanted to come up and thank the council for going through with their plans to address their water issues and making that decision. I appreciate the acknowledgement of the bipartisan support and efforts to resolve the issue. But I'd like to put this whole issue in context. This is not just a Georgetown, Kentucky issue, so as to point fingers and say, to blame it on somebody. This is actually an issue, this infrastructure kind of issue, a breakdown is nationwide. We hear about it in Flint, Jackson, Mississippi, but it's everywhere. So the result, it's the result of doing things on the cheap and then eventually paying a big price for it. So we as a community need to come together and make this investment. And just like a family that needs to, make a big home improvement that might be expensive, other expenses that now need to be prioritized according to need of all the citizens. So, for instance, in the family, no one person's going to splurge on something and the family doesn't eat or they don't pay their electric bills. So, that's where we're at, and I think it's an expenditure that we really need to invest in for the future for all of our citizens. On another note, let's get creative on how to help citizens handle the rate increase. For example, last year, I myself, the hottest summer on record that I can remember, how many 90-day degrees did we have in a row? I think 6 weeks or more. I only had to turn the spigot on to water my garden about 4 times. Why? I collect rainwater. Okay, I learned a few years ago from a friend of mine in Richmond. I helped him. He had a big shipment come in of reusable, food-grade water barrel. I mean, they turned into water rain barrels. He installed them on every one of his gutters or downspouts of his house, and he also had them all around his greenhouse. So, reusable food-grade barrels can be retrofitted quite easily. If I could do it, anybody could do it, and to collect rainwater. So, could we offer water credits like we offer energy credits for, using solar? Maybe even supply these type of barrels to families. I know people that want to have a green yard, they're going to be thinking about this water usage. So anyway, I'd like our community to be known not just as the fastest growing in the state, but also the most innovative. And on that note, I think we owe a lot to the Japanese who came to our community years ago, and they taught us about Kaizen, which I'll just read the definition. It's a concept referring to business activities that continuously improve all functions and involve all employees from the CEO to the assembly line worker. Kaizen also applies to processes such as purchasing and logistics that cross organizational boundaries and into the supply chain. So let's involve everybody and doing some innovative things, because we've got a lot of good minds here in Scott County. Thank you.
Okay. Terry Ward.
Good evening, my name's Terry Ward, and I'm the Operations Facility Manager for St. Francis and John Catholic Parish. 2006, the Diocese of Lexington and St. Francis and John purchased the Cardone property at 800 Cincinnati Road from the City of Georgetown. During the pandemic, we conducted outside masses on the property. In the spring of 2021, we began the process of moving our school from 106 Military to the Cardone property. We're nearing the end of our second year for St. John's School at Cardone and continue to grow our enrollment. July of 2022, the St. Francis and John Parish offices moved to Cardone from 604 East Main Street. As we prepare to move all church operations to the Cardone property, we have a few things we need to accomplish at the downtown property. I'm requesting permission to close one lane of Military on April the 17th and the 18th to facilitate removal of the bells from the bell tower of the church by American Industrial Contractors. They'll use a crane to remove the bells to a flatbed and transport to Cardone for storage. On May the 9th, with the rain date of May the 16th, I'm requesting permission to close all of Military from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. between Main and College. Residents of Military will still have access, but will be notified and invited to our event. When the school first opened in 1959, a time capsule was placed in the school building, and we would like to remove and open that time capsule with a small ceremony on May the 9th. Your approval of the road closures will greatly assist our operations.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll make a motion for both.
Motion is made. Any second?
I will second it.
Second. All in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passed. Stacy Kuhn.
Hello. Just want to start out by saying I've never done this in my life, so I kind of got thrown this in the last minute. But I'm here tonight to represent 280 young women who are members of the Scott County Softball Club and their families. With me tonight is our fundraiser committee coordinator, Rebecca Marcinko, and our facilities manager, Dustin Harris. And of course, I'm Stacy Kuhn. I'm the treasurer of the softball club. Our president, Amy, she can be here tonight because our own board meeting is actually going on. So here I am. As we all know, we had some storms recently that came through the community and left Marshall Park in ruins. We lost several of our dugouts, some of our trees, just different things. And some people have the idea that, our park was already in ruins. Actually, the comment, a goat farm, was used to describe our facilities, which we aren't really concerned with those people. But, I stand here before you today to stress how important Marshall Park is to our organization and our community. This is for our girls. Marshall Park is our softball home. It's our home away from home for anywhere from 6 to 8 months out of the year. All right. My family has personally been on the field for almost 9 years. My daughters have learned deep, lasting life lessons there. They've made lifelong friendships. We've won games, we've lost games, we've laughed, we've cried. And here's the hardest part, we've lost softball family that we love dearly, and this was all at Marshall Park. All right. So this is just something we deeply care about, One of the main reasons I stepped up to be a board member is because, I personally painfully watched as the fields at Marshall Park have deteriorated. Our softball board dissolved. So I stepped up because I wanted to make sure that our youngest daughter didn't lose the thing that she's most passionate about, and that's our softball club. And these great people here that are with me, they're here for the exact same reason. You know, they have children and grandchildren that are part of the club as well. It was brought to our attention over the weekend that there would be a vote tonight for funding for lighting. We desperately need this lighting for our upcoming spring season. But more importantly, what was brought to our attention was how repugnant we are to the community of Scott County because of how our fields look. And I can't speak on, you know, past leadership for the softball club because I wasn't, you know, there during that time. But I can say for our current leadership, we're fighting to keep our heads above water while we watch our once great organization drown. You may be asking yourself, why do we continue to torture ourselves? It's because we're passionate, and that's why I'm here. We're passionate about developing strong, successful women in our leadership for our community of Scott County through the softball program. Our goal is to one day have a nice facility that everybody can be proud of, but until then, you know, we'll have to continue to tend to our goat farm. So when you make your decision on the funding tonight for these minor repairs that we asking money for, imagine this room being packed with 280 young women of Scott County, and think about what message you want to send to them tonight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. Brenda Talby.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm not really prepared, except I'm here on behalf of the Southern Knights of Central Kentucky. We are a car club that's been established here in Georgetown for over 33 years. Would like to get you all's permission. I have sent in all the paperwork for you all and also for the state roads. We would like to have a closure to have our cruises every month, April through October. April the 15th, they're usually the third Saturday of every month except for July.
Is there a motion?
This is not in your packet.
I was going to say,
Explain
where's that
why.
at?
Yeah.
I think it's because I didn't get your state paperwork.
Okay.
Or all of your paperwork.
I got part of it.
Okay. So they don't really know about this, but I believe
Okay.
they came to you last year and asked for permission to do this. Do
Yes.
you remember that? Okay.
And I make a motion, Mayor, with the appropriate paperwork for it to happen.
I have a question, though.
Well, wait a minute.
Yes.
Do you have a second?
Yep.
Right now, of the discussion or question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you said which Saturday each month?
It'd be the third Saturday of each month, April through October.
Okay.
July is the only month that is pending.
And which roads you want to close?
We want the main highway out here,
Main
right
Street.
here.
Main Street.
Main Street.
What's the time?
We would like to have the closure at 2. We will start at 4, and we'll finish at 7.
4 to 7.
2 to 7.
2 to 7.
2 to 7, I'm sorry.
And what was the name of your club again?
Southern Knights of Central Kentucky, which is established here out of Georgetown. We are a nonprofit organization. We have helped the fire department here for many, many years. We donate for Toys for Tots. We do the Dream Factory, St. Jude, Cardinal Hills, a lot of the others. We've done the school. We've got to the school.
You have some really cool old cars too, don't you?
Yes, ma'am, we sure do. You've been there. But we were here in behind here last year. It is really nice, but it's just a little hard, you know, because we don't want to block it off totally. But we would like to have it on Main Street. I will make a point. All your other counties, Anderson, Shelby, around Harrodsburg, Paris,
Pulaski.
just about every one of them has got downtown, and I think it would help with the merchants.
Yes, I was going to say the
And,
business owners for
and
sure.
If we help with the merchants, I have talked to Lori at Tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Lori is going to help us what she can. You know, she gave me some ideas. We want to do dash plaques. I don't know if any of you know what dash plaques are, but we're going to do little dash plaques to give away to let people know that they're in Georgetown. So, but that's a request. We'd like to be able to close the 2 blocks starting April the 15th.
So you're talking Broadway to Hamilton?
I think that, yes.
Yes, okay.
About 2 blocks, yes, ma'am.
Are there any other discussion?
Are there any other events during that time frame?
No.
No.
Are there any other questions or comments? A motion has been made and properly second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dwayne Ellison.
Hi, I'm Dwayne, and I want to introduce Rachel as well. Rachel Rainey runs Transform Scott County. A lot of you probably know that. We are here with an intervention that has been done for the Findlay 5K. Transform Scott County has stepped up through some meandering by DT Wells, has kind of got us together, and we are going to go on with the 11th Findlay 5K. And so we are asking for the date that we might have a car show now, but September 16th at 6 o'clock is our normal time frame.
And I don't have any paperwork yet, do I?
No, you don't. Let's get that before you get all your insurance, all that stuff that we always do. And then, but just we've checked with tourism, we've checked with city police and all the folks that are at Georgetown College. We've got all that lined up, so came to you guys tonight to make sure, got it on your all's books too.
Mayor, I make a motion pending that Dwayne getting the paperwork in, or Rachel, but it's a great event. They've done a lot of good. I want to see it continue, so, yes, sir.
Motion is made. Got a second? Other discussion?
I do have a question, since it's going to fall on that 16th. I think that if you work with the car show, you can probably make that happen. That'll be a lot happening downtown for the
Sure, yeah.
the merchants, but I do believe
We're happy
it'll
to,
work. Yeah,
more the merrier.
yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other discussion or comments or concerns? Motion has been made, properly second, and discussed. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. David Livingston. David Livingston. Going once. There we go. All right.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is David Livingston. I live at 242 Ransom Trace over in Bradford. I'm coming tonight as a dad, not as a magistrate. I'm coming as a dad. I have 3 girls that grew up playing softball at Marshall Park, and I noticed that there was a land and water grant potential application to be applied for, and was just very interested in that, so I made some phone calls and talked to some folks, and I'm not sure if you all have been down there to look at the park, but I'm not sure when the last time any money at all has been spent on that park. Even to laser grade the fields, scoreboards, fencing. There are 3 dugouts and a light pole that are down right now at that park. I guess I'm assuming that it's the lower field, Field 1, which is the oldest and unkept field. When we put lights on Sutton Field, the baseball field, it cost about $300,000. My encouragement would be, do not spend $300,000 on lights for a field that has fences and dugouts that need to be replaced, rebuilt, repaired. Fields 2, 3, and 4 are in better actually, Field 2 is not in better, the lower field. It actually sits in kind of a floodplain and spends a lot of time that it's unplayable because if you get rain, the field stays too wet to be playing on it. But the upper 2 fields, they're in much better shape. They could use some TLC with the fencing, with the press boxes, especially with the scoreboards. They don't work half the time. Youth baseball, I didn't have any boys, didn't have any kids playing youth baseball, but I know maybe 4 years ago, they went and raised over $100,000 in funds to do improvements at their park. And I think that as an elected official with city properties, county properties, we absolutely need to keep a better eye on our facilities and take care of those. We too often build facilities and then they kind of come by and they slip our mind and we don't put the capital money into them. But as far as Marshall Park, as a dad, as a citizen that still goes up to those parks, I would implore you not to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on lights on a field that could use $50,000 to bring it up to a nice playing facility for that one field. So you would be better off taking the lights out entirely, playing only in the day in it, and spending that money to bring the field up to modern day standards, not just what it is right now. As far as the dugouts that have blown down, I would also recommend when you replace those, that's going to be insurance money. When you replace those, build half cinder block, half chain link, because those have been rebuilt 3 or 4 times now because they've blown down from windstorms. And there's no reason to put the same thing back, because if it's blown down 3 or 4 times already, it's going to blow down again. So thank you all for your service. I thank you all for what you do, and we'll be watching. Thank you.
David, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Have you been to the Parks Board and talked about this?
About the land and water grant?
No.
About what?
About the dugouts and the lights?
No, because I haven't been to the Parks Board because it takes the city to expend the money to fix the facilities. So like on the county side, we're the ones that spend the money to fix the facilities, like we replaced the lights out at Sutton Field
Yeah.
and have done other things out at Lois Holmes Field. And
But as a dad whose girls played there, and I know they played there, would you?
when my girls were playing there, we absolutely did. But that was
So-
way before Kim's time.
But what I'm saying is you're seeing this now. Why wouldn't you go to the Parks Board to?
I have. I've been to the Parks Board before because we even fought the fight of a Title IX issue because there were more baseball fields than softball fields
Okay.
at one point in time. And we got nowhere with that. So it's one of those, the definition of insanity, you keep doing the same thing over and over again and get the same results. And so and their budget has not been in they don't own it. They don't own the county stuff. So it's our responsibility to keep those things up and pay for those things. So, but yes, I have been to the Parks Board about it before, but it was way before Kim was assistant director or even director, so.
No, it was, gosh, I think Sherry was even the assistant director.
Yeah, Sherry, yeah, Lois was still
Lois
here.
is still
Yeah,
here.
Lois was still here.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Richard King?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Richard King, and I wanted to just come before you and speak on a piece of legislation that is up in Frankfurt right now. And let me preface my statements by saying I'm an independent. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. But Senator Thayer is going to be filing legislation to have local governments and local school boards to become partisan. I listened in on the sessions up at Frankfurt up there, and the party that used to be small government has now become big government up there. So I would like to just hope that our city council would vote to remain nonpartisan. Problems that are being created up in Frankfurt is going to have lasting effects upon our citizens in the state of Kentucky. You guys are elected to take care of local stuff. They shouldn't be dictated from Frankfurt. So once again, let me encourage you to think that thing through, to talk about that, and to once again vote to remain nonpartisan and put out a statement to that effect, and just letting them know that we're going to keep everything in Georgetown, Scott County, and what goes on here will be determined by the leadership in this county. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. King.
Is that Senate Bill 50?
Yes, yes.
And is that not something that we vote on?
No.
It's something that, yeah, I thought I heard you.
Yes.
vote to remain nonpartisan and then make that statement.
Gotcha.
Councils often pass resolutions in support or opposition of legislation and send that to their representatives.
Right.
So that's always an option.
Are there any other public comments that needs to be made that did not sign in? Okay, moving next, we got the Georgetown Police Department promotions, Captain Nick Lodal and Lieutenant Michael Scott. So I'll leave it up to you, Chief Allgood.
Good evening. So we have the opportunity to bring 2 officers before you all. They were recently promoted to captain and lieutenant. Both of them have several years in law enforcement. They both have worked very hard at our department. They've both worn multiple hats and helped us out over the years, and I think they have the same vested interest as we do, is to continue to grow the department and make sure we're going in the right direction, be professional and taking care of the community and giving you the best police service we can. So I'd like to recognize Captain Lodal and Lieutenant Scott. Lieutenant Scott has his family here, and I believe his wife will be pinning him. And Captain Lodal's family is also here, and his mother will be pinning him.
How sweet. Mayor, I'd like to go on the record to say something, and I know everybody's going to think I'm crazy, but back in the day when we used to do diapers with pins, and sometimes they would be hard to stick through your diaper.
When was that?
Back in the day. And I would take that pin and slide it through my hair, and then stick it in, and it would go through. Just want to say that. I know it's old school, but it does work.
Well, I'm sure all the mothers would like to have, appreciate that information. Okay, next on the agenda, some comments here from the mayor here. I got a very few comments. This is for the council. You need to make sure you get your revenue forecasting participation in to me as soon as possible. If you're going to participate in that, please do that. You can email it to me, and I will get it to Stacy, and we'll continue on with that. Another talking about legislation, there's another legislation that you all as citizens and also council to make sure we let our representative know about there's another bill coming out about annexation, and I'm going to let Devin talk a little bit more about that and give you a background on that. But we really need to make sure we understand this and also voting against this, because this is something that's not going to be good for us.
And I've printed out just, it's a very brief note, but it's more so as a reminder to the council to take the opportunity to contact our representatives and senators on this issue. It's not even defined as a bill at this point, but there is a push by counties, and apparently there is legislative leadership in support of it, and it's a bill that would put a moratorium on annexations until mid-2025, which obviously would be an incredible impediment to economic development for cities. I I think, I'm not going to go into the reasoning that counties are pushing for this. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but I want to make council aware of this. KLC has been in communication with Senate leadership and has sent over a counter proposal. So they've suggested amended language. As of now, they have not heard back on whether that language is acceptable or going to be considered, but the message is this is going to be on the governor's desk Thursday, absent, some negotiated changes. So I'll get that information to you all. I really encourage you to email, call, text, whatever form of communication to our leaders at the General Assembly to make sure they know that we're opposed to it, because like KLC said, if they don't hear from you, they'll assume you're fine. And
I just wanted to say I've already emailed Senator Thayer on that issue to say no. I've read about that, and it's also impedes people that own their own property that should be allowed to do with their property what they want. So that's another issue as well. So I also encourage that you do that as well, and they're really easy to contact.
yeah, and part of the information that needs to be out there is that I think the statistic is 97% of annexations are at the request of the property owner. So this isn't, annexations aren't a situation where cities are, just trying to absorb as much property as possible. Property owners want those city services. They want to be in the urban service boundary. So I will send updates to you all as I get them on that. But like I said, it's incredibly time sensitive at this point. I reached out to KLC about a resolution for the council today, and I didn't hear back because he's scrambling. So the phone calls and emails are gonna be what gets it done here. But I'll keep you all in the loop.
Also, as far as the urban service boundary goes, we just did our comprehensive plan. So anybody that wants to annex into the city right now, if they're not within that urban service boundary, that's not going to happen, correct?
Yeah, the annexations will still, like we do now, they typically come as recommendations from the planning commission as a condition of a zone change or a development. So, yeah, that process will continue. I will say that the proposed bill goes retroactive to January 1. So anything that wasn't completed is subject to this legislation if it would go through. So I'll keep you all in the loop, but please make your voice heard.
Devin, do you know the bill number?
No, it's one of those situations. What I understand is that they're kind of
It's
sliding
sliding
it
it
into
into-
another bill just
Yeah.
to get it done. So I don't have a number. If I have one, I think as long as you're referencing the annexation moratorium, I think the message will be heard.
Also, another on that legislation, you mentioned, Mr. King, about KLC, about the local election. I think KLC is actually making a big push to let our senators know and let the legislature know that they're not for that either. So everybody's on the same page with that. That local issues should be local issues.
Mayor, if I could I recommend that
Do a
Devin
resolution?
do a resolution for us to say that we don't want that to happen?
There's a motion made to,
To do a resolution about the back parking?
You don't need a
Okay.
motion. If a council member wants it to come at the
Okay.
next meeting, I can do that.
all right, just trying to be efficient, so there you go.
Thank you.
What? Okay, so she'll take care of that. We're having our first pro soccer game is going to be this Saturday at Toyota Stadium. If y'all didn't know that Lexington has a new soccer club, and they're going to be using the facilities until they get their new facility in Lexington up and running. So that's for the men, and also there's an opportunity for the women. They also have a league for them that's going to use Toyota Stadium. But so this Saturday is their first opening game, and I think this will be a great economic boost for us here in Georgetown. And one more thing for the council here, street paving. If you get your request in, send it to me as soon as possible, so I can get that to our city engineer and everybody else, so we can get that taken care of. Okay? All right, next we have the council committee reports, and I'm going to start with finance.
We did ours last.
Yes, okay. Public Works is supposed to be,
We're meeting on Wednesday,
Okay.
but just to reiterate, we've got a couple of Republic things that we'll shoot you in the email tomorrow that I've just been made aware of.
okay,
And then hopefully we'll have our agenda tomorrow, and then we meet Wednesday.
Yeah, we are meeting with Republic on Wednesday. Our committee is going to meet with them and go over some concerns which citizens have been brought forward, and hopefully that we can come to some workable solution to handle those problems and be able to come to where there's some issues have been occurring, that we can get to those taken care of right away.
One thing I do want to just shout out there to everybody about Public Works and our first responders, as far as when the windstorm that we had that Friday. Georgetown, we could be proud of what Georgetown has done, because they were out there 24/7 doing what needed to be done. So shout out to all of them, Public Works, Fire Department, and Police Department. Thank you very much.
And to echo that, I went out a little bit on Friday and also went out on Saturday, and there was a lot of issues. I kept in constant contact with Chief Allgood and Chief Thompson, and also I did checking in with Bruin with Public Works, and those people worked tirelessly throughout the night. I went out Saturday morning to check some of the damage. I did see Marshall Field. I did see the dugouts that was there, not there, and I also saw that our fire station had some damage, which we are addressing at this time, and there was others. I went out there, matter of fact, got a phone call from Judge Covington, and he was also out there. We were looking, and once that happened, immediately put into play the state of emergency. That way we could also get funding if we need to, when we did that right away. So we don't know if we'll get FEMA help, but maybe some insurance help with some other issues. And if there's no other, yes.
Committee. Police
Yeah, committee.
We did meet. March 6th, we did meet. Assistant Chief Nash talked about recruiting efforts, how diversity was a priority, and that they identified, they were at EKU, is that correct?
EKU March 1st.
Yes, and identified 16 individuals. What was the breakdown on that? That's one thing I didn't write down.
I don't have those notes in front
Yeah.
of me, but it's 5 females, 3 African American males, and the rest were females.
Okay. And that they are looking to attend other colleges and universities for job fairs and to look for applicants through that system as well. That one of the bright notes is that they have a lot of 20-year-olds that are trying to apply, but have to be that magical age of 21. So we discussed even possibly looking at hiring some of the 20-year-olds, maybe doing parking tickets or whatever, just to get them into the system and then reach that magical age to roll over. So then we talked about community policing efforts. On March 24th, at Toyota, they'll be having a workplace violence demonstration. They're conducting foot patrols on first and second shift in the downtown area with open businesses. Second and third shift, they'll be doing through Ed Davis, Scroggins Park, Northern Heights, DeGarris Mill areas. Downside, we're losing 2 officers at the end of March, Sergeant Sarah Duke and Ricky Lusk. That's a lot of experience walking out the door, but, they're moving on to bigger and better things. With the IT vacancy, they're working now, building a job description, looking at the median salary for a civilian in an IT position at roughly $74,000 a year. They're identifying the technician roles, which would be the civilian roles in the IT job, as well as law enforcement roles and any crossover roles. Also starting to identify possible persons for the civilian role, retired law enforcement officers on that side, because they do know the law and the open records and Ricky Lusk has said that he would be able to help should the need to fill gap or with experience in that position. Looking at salaries, we're trying our best to, and officers do understand, and they're I don't want to say patient, but they seem to be, so they're willing to give it a chance. So one thing that, and you may want to address this, Chief Nash, is the updates on the body cams, working on a model draft. Grant cycle comes up in July, updating a quote, and the new tasers won't be connected with the body cams, is that correct?
So the new tasers will be connected.
Okay.
But the purchase of those two items are going to be separate.
Okay.
When before our quote was together,
Right,
we've purchased the tasers through the LEAP grant.
okay,
And I was on a Zoom this morning with Taser, talking about the body cams, and they're going to go back and have to redo the quote that they gave me this morning because it was not what we asked for. So that's where we're at on that.
did I miss anything?
I don't think so. There's a lot of information in that meeting.
There was at that.
Question.
And-
I'm sorry, finish.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
I'm fine, I'm done.
I was wondering, doesn't KLC have a grant for body cams that they would pay up to 50%?
I don't know if it's through KLC, the LEPP program that Chief Nash and Chief Fossey worked on to get the funding for the tasers. That same program does the body cams, and it's a pretty significant amount of money. Like he said, our quote last time included both the tasers and the body cameras, so trying to get a better figure on those numbers. I can look into whether KLC does it. I can't imagine, there's not a chance they have the money to do.
I know in our
do it.
training, I know that came up. I remember hearing something about that. And I thought they said it was a 50%
Match.
match.
I can look into it. I can't imagine that KLC would have, KLC does have grant funding, but that's pretty substantial. But they might have been plugging a different grant, so I'll look into that. But the LEP, Law Enforcement Protection Program, is that it?
Yes.
Is the funding cycle that Assistant Chief Nash is kind of keeping a pulse on. And based on when that opens and the status of the draft policy, it's not unreasonable that we could apply for the next round of funding.
The only thing with the LEPP grant, just like the tasers, is they will fund only they fund certain parts of that package. So they won't be fully funded, but it will be more than 50%, I do believe.
I have a question about that, about the body cams, if you don't mind. Previously, we've been told that if we did the body cams, that we would need to hire someone, not actually a police person, but an admin person to like keep up with that. Is that still on the table to do that as well?
As far as I know, I mean, that's a big position because there's going to be a lot of data and filling a lot of open records requests.
Is that still something that's on the table?
I would say yes. We've talked, and there has been talks about having a civilian that might be law enforcement, retired law enforcement, just because of the open records and the crossover that you need to know the laws within open records to maintain that appropriately.
Okay.
But yes, I do believe it will still be a need, especially with Ricky transitioning away.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else?
I think it's it.
Okay,
Mayor,
yes,
the fire committee.
yep. I was gonna get you on next.
Are we doing it now, or?
No,
'Cause we
no,
want-
we just,
I'd rather-
we had our,
We had a
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
this is Brent and I, who are on the
Okay.
fire committee, met with Stacy, Chief Thompson, Devin, and the mayor earlier this afternoon, gathering additional information on a possible construction of a new fire station. We took no action, just gathering information and trying to gain knowledge. So again, just wanted to
Yep.
make sure that was
And hopefully,
communicated.
and Chief Thompson can explain more or answer any questions anybody has
Yes, and
once we get to that.
yes, and once we get that,
the
Chief,
agenda.
yeah, Chief Thompson's here to answer any more questions with that. Okay,
Traffic committee?
A traffic committee, we don't have one today that we need to talk to you? No?
No,
Okay, all right,
we got a big one coming up,
right,
When is that?
May the 20th,
May 20th.
4:30, City Hall.
All right. I think finance, we've already,
We reported last month.
Right,
Yeah, we
but-
reported last.
okay, and then we got a meeting here. So I think we covered all of the committees, and thank you all again for the committees on your fine work. I'm thinking it's going pretty good that we all are able to let the community know what's being talked about and talking with citizens and bringing this information out so everybody can be on the same page. Is what we're doing. Next on the agenda is Parks and Recreation Resolution authorizing Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application for Marshall Park lights.
We were actually in the process of doing this grant request before the storm, so it was our new number one priority once we got Ed Davis Park playground funded. So this was the next step down the line, was to do Marshall one. Those poles have been there since the mid-1970s. I don't know if it's 73 or 76. I can't remember which one. They are 30 feet tall. They need to be replaced, and now we have an additional one that's down. They are a safety issue, and that's why we are looking to apply for the Land and Water Grant to help subsidize this application. Does anybody have any questions regarding this?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I have several. Actually, Marshall Park, I grew up with Marshall Park. In fact, my dad had a softball team there back in 1960. So that's how long Marshall Park's been around. And it used to be our fairgrounds before it moved out to where it's at now. My question to you is that I know that this Land and Water Grant, which anytime we can get a grant, we're all for it. But with what's happened with the storm, is there any way that we can get it to where it's more up to date, and also maybe get a bid from you, Kim, as far as what it would take to bring the softball fields up to par, so that we can keep that up?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
know that it's a capital project, and I know your budget's been pretty tight with everything that's been going on with the pavilion. I recognize that.
Yes.
But it's something that that's close and near to my heart too. Growing up playing softball myself, not girls team for sure, because they didn't have it back in my day. But I think it's imperative that we can, invest in our park. And
We actually just had delivered 100 tons of new infill dirt, and the majority of that is going to go to Marshall. That was funded in last year's capital budget, because even infill dirt for me is a capital budget request because it's over $10,000.
Okay.
So that is already happening. Last year, we actually were going to replace a couple of scoreboards, but then the scoreboard had set and stopped working completely. So we had to re-divert that money from either Suffoletto or Marshall to be able to fix the one scoreboard that just stopped working altogether. So there's been some shifts in capital finances in order to be able to do that. But absolutely, this lighting is going to be an update. And I actually have Mr. Mickey here from Musco Lighting, who is the all-know of sports lighting. You want to come up here and talk about the differences in the new lights? What the difference of these lights?
Well, I guess what I wanted to say was, and Kim hit on it right out of the gate, is those lights are old. They're very old. Right now, I think you've got 30-foot wood poles. One of them came down. More than likely, the rest are soon to follow since they've been there that long.
It was hollow on the inside.
Yeah, so more than likely, the rest are going to be the same way. But the reason to upgrade the lights is safety, right? We got 280 girls playing out there. And it's not only the poles falling, but it's the amount of light that you have. It's the uniformity or the smoothness of light that you have out there that's really inadequate. Back clear when Lois was the director, she had asked me to come out and look at it, and I don't think anything's changed from 10+ years ago. I'd be happy to go out there and take actual light readings so you would know how much light you have out there, and then you could compare it to what's recommended from the High School Athletic Association or amateur softball or Little League or Cal Ripken. They're all very similar in nature, but they're all put in place for a reason, and the one is safety. And it's safety for the players, for the officials, for the spectators. And just in looking at it, I drove by it again today, and I'm actually a resident of Scott County as well, so I'm out here quite a bit. I'd sure encourage you to take a real hard look at it before somebody gets hurt.
I think that replacing the lights, I mean, you know, we're going to get a land and water grant for that, correct, Kim?
Hopefully.
We're
that's-
hoping to
that's
do
the
that.
opportunity, yes.
And that's a match, right?
It is. It's a 50-50 match. And my intention was to put it through my budget, which means that the match would be shared between the city and the county.
So both of us would have to vote on it. But in the meantime, is there any way that you could, I know you're going to get insurance money on the dugouts and stuff like that, so put together something for us to let us know more about what the fields will entail and the scoreboard and all of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. The scoreboard that we replaced at Sutton was $21,000. So that's the kind of price tags you're looking at. The lights on Field 3 and Field 4 are fairly new. Like Mr. Livingston was saying with Field 2, it's just always a swampy mess. There's no electricity out there, and you're talking about significant cost. I think we got it priced about 4 years ago to do Field 2, and it was bad. Just for Field 2, it was over $500,000.
Is that because of the water, the retention?
It was to get the electricity to Field 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's the field that's closest to Broadway,
Yes.
on the lower level.
Yep. And the problem it has is actually, you can see when it's raining, you can see it bubbling up out of the outfield. I mean, I don't know how to fix that. I know that the softball club, when I was on the board of the softball club, because it's my heart too, they invested about $5,000–6,000, and I think Parks maybe split the cost to be able to put some drainage in. But when the water comes up that high, there's just nothing you can do about it. I can remember mini Slammers Fest where you can't even see the field because there's so much water sitting there.
Kim, who maintains the field?
So the softball club, with all of our organized sports organizations, they maintain within the fence during the time they're utilizing the fields, and we maintain outside of the fence. But if there's anything that's like plumbing, we don't utilize the restrooms at the softball club at all. But anytime they have plumbing issues or electrical issues or even equipment issues, we usually cover the cost of repairing that equipment or fixing that plumbing or whatever they are.
Kim, a couple questions. How many games are actually played at night where we need the lights?
A lot.
Yeah.
They could probably speak more than me. I think it starts to get dark about 7 o'clock, and during tournaments, they'll play all the way up till midnight at an hour and 15 a game. During the school year, they'll play all the way up to about 10 o'clock. Is that about right? Yeah.
And then second question,
Yeah, and the boys use the fields as well because, like they were saying, Marshall has 4 fields, where Suppaletta also has 4 fields, but their numbers are around the 360 to 400, where the boys are 700 plus. So there's a lot of cooperation between the two organized sports to be able to share field space. And in addition to that, on Mondays and Tuesday nights, both organizations go out to Great Crossing and kind of split those fields on Tuesday and Wednesday nights too. And we help facilitate that.
in the time with what Councilwoman Tack is talking about, is there an assessment of each park that is looked at across the board so we can see the condition of each park? and each
Absolutely.
field?
Absolutely. I do that every year. It's a parks tour. I do it in January, and every city council member and every magistrate and every mayor. And as a matter of fact, we have 3 Willow in the room that attended it this year.
So there is a report that's issued or? Okay.
And then I send it out via email after we do the parks tour. And I try to get feedback from the city council members and from the magistrates. And I tell you what, I've never had anybody from the county participate, so I'm very, very grateful. The mayor joined us this year. Yep.
And Alonzo, to give you an idea, and I know what the softball club says it, but as a resident that used to live back there, oh my gosh. And it was, those lights would be on, especially in the summer, March to on, it'd be 10, 11 o'clock during the week that the lights were still on and games were going on. And then on the weekends with tournaments, it's 7 a.m. to
Midnight.
whenever.
They have to close at midnight.
So,
It's pretty
those
intense.
those fields are heavily used. Softball fields. Now, you go on farther back onto the upper part, you've got youth league football.
Yes.
Those are used huge. So, yeah, that whole complex up there is used tremendously.
And that report that I supply every year, which I've done it for 3 years since I've been the director, every year, it has a SWOT analysis of each park, and it also has an estimated cost of what the capital needs are coming up. And whether it's already has land and water restrictions in it, what the acreage are of the park, what the amenities are. It's very detailed.
And Ms. Kim, the lights, talking about the lights, there's a light up there that glass particles are falling.
Yes.
So that's a safety issue too. I mean, when people are sitting on the bleachers for the game, I mean, there's.
And I'm one of those parents. My daughter played softball, and I was sitting underneath that light, not the one that fell, but the one over on the first baseline, maybe 5 years ago, and she hit a fly ball. It's only 30 feet tall, so it didn't take much to get it up there, and it hit the light, and glass is coming down on top of me as a parent. Even though I was on the board and working for parks, I was one of those people, so yes.
I have a question. I know Mr. Livingston mentioned this about fundraisers. Have you all tried to do any kind of fundraisers?
Yes, ma'am. We are working diligently on fundraisers. We actually ran across a new one this year. Cincinnati Reds has 4 groups, I believe, that are part of their organization that help fund, like the softball club or baseball, whatever. You have to apply. Rebecca's done that this year. We applied and we did get $2,000. $1,000 of that went towards new equipment. We actually have our building that it's the lower storage building that we have had a leak, and it ruined all of our equipment. So we don't have any cafeteria. So we did resupply all that through that grant that we received. Another 1,000 will be coming as soon as we put in for our, it's basically a field maintenance. Yeah, it's for field maintenance. We have to put our rosters in and our coaches' information and all that. Once we submit that, then they'll cut us a check for that. But yes, Rebecca has been busting her butt the last year. We're all relatively new. So there really wasn't a solid foundation left for us. We didn't have proper updating training on what had happened before. Even though my children have been in there for 9 years, I hadn't been a part of the board. I had done voluntary, I had been, assistant coach and different things like that, but I had not been on the board or been to board meetings or anything of that nature. And when they left, they left. So there was nobody. So we're still learning. So we're basically putting together a whole new foundation. So we're starting from ground zero. But we are working. We've gotten a handful of people together on the board right now. Very few. But we're working around the clock trying to find ways to come up with funding. We tried to implement higher rates for the program to try to generate some funding that way. People threw a fit, so we had to drop that back down. So this time we increased our fundraising fees instead of our registration fees, where people could get their money back if they want to. That has went over very well. We haven't heard any complaints yet about that, but we will provide them a way to get that money back if they want to. So I think that's probably where we're going to steer more on the fundraising side for what's put in with the registration. We are going to be doing a raffle. We tried that last year. It worked really well. We raised extra money, about $500 extra on that, which was great for us. But we also started doing the Dine to Donate. That has also been helping.
So you're coming with quite a few different things to.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
If I can interject a second, sponsorship versus fundraising. We're trying to figure out
Which route to go?
which route to go. The sponsorships, yes, we need the sponsorship for the teams. But the fundraising, we need to figure out how to work with our community in order to get fundraising to help with the softball club.
Okay.
So that we know how much that we need in order to enhance the fields over here.
Okay.
So that's where I'm trying to move into the fundraising part of it. It's to shift it towards more fundraising and how our community can work with us. Like, for instance, the cruise-in that they were talking about. How can we work with the cruise-in to get them to work with us, with the softball girls, to get them to notice us over there? Because the baseball boys, they get noticed. They're noticed. So we need to shift it to the girls as well. Because we do share a field with the Scott County Girls Middle School, and we use the fields over there as well. The girls do there too. So the fields need to be ready for them to be used, and we do need them at night.
Okay.
So,
That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kim.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
And I should have asked Mr. Livingston when he was here.
Sure.
I know there's been some discussion, I'm not sure how far along that discussion is, on possibly building some additional softball fields
Yes.
at a Great Crossing Park.
Absolutely. The discussion has been to build an additional 4 cloverleaf at Great Crossing Park. And I absolutely support that project too. Because we don't have enough sports fields in any of our fields, whether it be soccer or softball or baseball or football. All of our community sports organizations are being smashed into not enough space to play.
So when, not if, but when those 4 fields are built, the fields will continue to operate at Marshall Field?
Oh,
Or will
absolutely.
those ultimately be,
Absolutely, yes,
okay?
yes.
You're not planning on trying to shut Marshall Field down because you're expanding on the other ones, are you?
No. Well, no. And
Okay.
so one of the things that we did do this, I guess it's been 2 years maybe, we took away Field 5 from Marshall Park. That was the adult field. It was not really utilized by softball club in that it was a much larger field, and we took it back to Brooking where it additionally was. So what that allowed us to do was expand football into the space of Field 5. So it's not that it's never going to be used again. Those are always going to be softball fields there, because even if the premier playing area is at Great Crossing Park because they're newer, they're better, they got better lights, we still need practice fields all the time.
Okay.
And we have over 32 select leagues between softball and baseball that are also trying to utilize our fields that go through us and rent the facilities. But there's not enough because all of our organizations are using them first, and they are our priority.
If needed, if this passes,
Yes.
which obviously comes out, half of that cost is going to come out of our city budget.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, don't take this the wrong way. Somewhere down the road, if needed, if these lights are constructed at Marshall Field or Marshall Park, can they be moved down the road? Or how difficult of a task is that if they ever had to be moved?
That's a question for you.
Yes, they can be moved. They are field specific to an extent. So if you're asking specifically about the wagon wheel that may be built out of Great Crossing, if you look at what we did for the fields that are out there now, we had shared poles. So like the infield poles have lights back to back. These, unless we make concessions for that now, structurally, they wouldn't have the capacity to be able to do back-to-back. So the answer to your question is a lot longer than probably you want me to spend on it. But the short answer is yes. The long answer is it would be very important that we had a very specific place we were going to put them, and we planned for that going forward at Great Crossing.
Okay, any other? Then at this time, I have a motion.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. There's been a motion properly made and second. Are there any further discussions? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we have the GMWSS.
Thank you.
Evening, Council, Mayor. It's going to be a true team effort tonight. Sean's going to present some of our agenda, and then Chase will be in at the very end. But I'm going to start things off with the agenda item in your packet related to the 2023 Series A Bond Anticipation Note Ordinance and the 2028 Series A Bond Ordinance. A couple of items before we kind of get into the question and answer portion. In the memo that's in your packet, in the paragraph of the 2028 Series A Bond Ordinance, it references an amount of $65 million. That was originally what we had planned to write this bond ordinance for. As you'll see further back in your packet, in the actual ordinance itself, it's written for $86.65 million. That's the total amount that we need to finance everything. Pay off the Truist note, that our existing band number 2, pay for the rest of Plant 1, and those other projects that are partially funded through other agencies, ARPA grants, and some other interim funding. So that was a typo. This was the originally memo that was issued to our board, and our board had instructed us to make the change coming to you, and apologize that it did not get into your packet. The ordinance, however, is correct at $86.65 million. One other item I wanted to bring to your attention, the bond anticipation note ordinance is for an amount that's quite a bit less than the bond ordinance. That difference is the amount of the Truist note that we have outstanding for $31.5 million. As we were doing some tax digging on the tax implications of when we retired that debt for Truist, it was brought to our attention that if we borrow the $86 million now with the intent to pay off the Truist note when it matures, which would be in June of 2024, we're not allowed to do that. If we do, the IRS may look on that Truist note as no longer tax exempt. We may lose our tax exempt status for that. So in other words, we can't borrow the money now, hold it for a year, and then pay off that note in a year with the money we borrowed today. If we borrow the money today, we have to pay that note off within 90 days. Because that Truist note is at 2.45%, we don't want to pay it off early. That's just additional interest costs for us if we do. So for now, we're going to do a bond anticipation note for the $55 million that's in your memo and your ordinance. And then at some point near the maturity of that Truist band number 2 for $31 million, we'll take out yet another piece of interim funding to pay off the Truist at that point when it matures. It's possible at that point in 2024 that we would be going to the bond market, but I have a feeling interest rates won't be where we want them to be in 2024 yet for that to be the best move for us. So there will probably be yet another interim financing to pay off that Truist note. Apologize, that's a lot of information, a lot of accounting ease. I'll pause if you guys have any questions. With me tonight is Mark Franklin. He's our bond attorney with Dinsmore and Scholl. Chip Sutherland and Maria Long are both from Baird in Louisville. They are our municipal advisors, and they're here to help me answer any questions you guys might have. So with that, I'll shut up for a moment and let you ask those questions.
So the rate increase that we're already doing is what's going to take care of paying those notes, right?
Yes, ma'am. The rate increase you approved at the last council meeting is not impacted by anything we're doing here in order not to lose our tax exempt status for that Truist money.
Okay.
Nothing is impacted from the rate increase.
And you're just maintaining the lower interest rate for now?
We're just not going to pay it off yet.
Right.
We don't. Yeah. If we borrow enough now, we'd be forced to pay it off within 90 days, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So what are bond rates right now?
Chip, can you help me?
I'm not coming up with an answer. I don't know yet, but we have budgeted about 5% rates. Actually, today, because of the weekend's news with that bank collapsing, Treasury rates really fell dramatically, 60 basis points. in some areas. Municipal rates, Maria, my colleague Maria and I were talking about that on the way here. Municipal rates didn't drop as much as treasuries. And really what that means is all the investors are flying to safety. So they're going to treasuries, which are the most safe things. Municipal bonds are not quite as safe as treasuries, but they're pretty close to it. So we're seeing a little relief in rates, but there'll be a lot of activity over the next, several months. There's 2 Fed meetings. There's one in March. There's one in May. And before this news broke of the bank that the 2 banks that failed, the anticipation of the market was that there would be like a 70% chance of a 50 basis point increase in March. And after that news was released and FDIC and the Fed swept in, that there's now like a 60% chance of a 25 basis points hike in federal funds rate. So it's still a lot of it's up in the air, but just for some calming news, that bank was focused on tech industry, one sector. It doesn't really speak to the greater banking community. We anticipate for our solicitation of responses, a fairly robust response. And I'm saying 5% because that's where we were a month ago or so. And if it's 5.5, everything works. If it's 4.5, everything's better. Does that help?
That helps. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ready?
Ma'am, if you are.
Shooting resolution, go ahead.
An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky authorizing the issuance of its water and sewer revenue bond anticipation notes 2023 Series A in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $55,130,000 to provide interim financing for the expansion of and various improvements to the city's municipal water and sanitary sewer system in anticipation of the issuance of the city's water and sewer revenue bonds 2028 Series A. Designated the city as paying agent and registrar in respect thereof, approving the form of the 2023 Series A notes, approving the preparation of a request for proposals and other offering documents for the 2023 Series A notes, authorizing designated officers to execute and deliver the 2023 Series A notes, authorizing and directing the filing of a notice or notices with the state local debt officer, providing for the payment and security of the 2023 Series A notes, establishing a note redemption fund, a cost of issuance account, and a construction and acquisition account for the 2023 Series A notes, providing for the sale of the 2023 Series A notes to the best bidder, and repealing inconsistent ordinances. The ordinance authorizes the issuance of a series of water and sewer revenue bond anticipation notes by the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, in a maximum aggregate principal amount of $55,130,000, the 2023 Series A notes, for the purpose of financing the cost of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of the expansion of the city's existing sanitary sewage treatment plant and related facilities, and the expansion of and various other improvements to the city's sewer collection and treatment facilities and water pollution treatment and distribution facilities on an interim basis in anticipation of the future issuance of the city's water and sewer revenue bonds 2028 Series A, and paying the cost of issuance of the 2023 Series A notes. The ordinance also approves the execution and delivery by the city of a request for proposals and other offering documents for the sale of the 2023 Series A notes. The 2023 Series A notes are to be sold in an advertised public sale in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 424 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes or by the solicitation of proposals as required by the law. The 2023 Series A notes are to bear interest payable at a single rate per annum from their date of issuance to maturity as shall be established upon their sale. The interest rate applicable to the 2023 Series A notes shall not exceed 10% per annum. Introduced and publicly read for the first time on March 13th, 2023.
All right.
Should have the,
Are you ready to read the other one now?
yes.
The 28? An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky authorizing the issuance of its water and sewer revenue bonds 2028 Series A in an approximate aggregate principal amount of $86,650,000 for for the purposes of refunding at an advance of maturity the city's water and sewer revenue bond anticipation notes 2023 Series A and certain other interim indebtedness of the city, and 2, providing permanent financing for the cost of the expansion of and various improvements to the city's municipal water and sanitary sewer system. Designated the paying agent and the registrar in respect thereof, authorizing designated officers to execute and deliver the 2028 Series A bonds, providing for the payment and security of the 2028 Series A bonds, establishing a principal account, an interest account, a cost of issuance account, and a construction and acquisition account for the 2028 Series A bonds, approving the preparation of one or more preliminary and final official statements for the 2028 Series A bonds, providing for the sale of the 2028 Series A bonds to the lowest and best bidder, and authorizing the execution of documents on behalf of the city. The ordinance authorizes the issuance of a series of water and sewer revenue bonds by the city of Georgetown, Kentucky, in an approximate aggregate principal amount of $86,650,000 for the purposes of refunding the city's outstanding water and sewer revenue bond anticipation notes, 2023 Series A, at or in advance of maturity, the proceeds of which provided interim financing for a portion of the cost of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of the expansion of the city's sanitary sewer treatment plant and related facilities, and the expansion of and various improvements to the city's sewer collection and treatment facilities and water production, treatment, and distribution facilities. Refunding at or in advance of maturity any additional interim indebtedness issued to finance cost of the project after the date of issuance of the 2023 Series A note, but before the date of issuance of the 2028 Series A bonds. Permanently financing any remaining cost of the project, funding any necessary increase in the reserve account established for the benefit of the 2028 Series A bonds, and other obligations secured by a first lien pledge of the revenues of the city's municipal water and sanitary sewer system. Paying the cost of credit enhancements for the 2028 Series A bonds, if any, and paying the cost of issuance of the 2028 Series A bonds. In connection with the issuance of the 2028 Series A bonds, the ordinance also approves a preliminary official statement and final official statement, the official terms and conditions of bond sale, and a continuing disclosure undertaking. The 2028 Series A bonds are to be sold at an advertised public sale in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 424 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes as required by law. The 2028 Series A bonds shall bear interest payable at a rate or rates from their date of issuance to their respective maturities as shall be established upon their sale. Introduced and publicly read for the first time March 13th, 2023.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we passed the rate and we were talking about the construction loan that we were getting, so to speak, like a short-term construction loan, is that not what we did in order to pay what needed to be done up front and not bond right now because the interest rates were so high?
Yeah, yes, that's the 55 million, the bond anticipation note, that is that interim note.
Okay.
That we're taking 5 years, interest only, draw note. That, it's 55 million instead of the 86 because of we can't pay off the truest note early, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
But that is what that 55 million is.
A construction loan, so to speak, 5 years?
Yes, construction loan, so to speak.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay, I'll turn it over to Sean.
okay, the northwest bypass water line extension, recommendation of award.
Good evening, I'm Sean Darrington. We have a recommendation of award for construction of the Northwest Bypass Waterline Extension Project. We received bids on February 15th. This project was included in the 2022-2023 rate study and is partially funded through ARPA Cleaner Water Program. The budget for this project is $2.9 million. The project is included in the current FY23 budget. In concurrence with the design engineer, we are recommending award of this contract in the amount of $2,141,875 to include the base bid and the bid alternate number 1. The base bid includes a booster pump station, 7,400 linear feet of 8-inch and 5,900 linear feet of 10-inch water line. The additive alternate includes an additional mile of 8-inch water line, and the project is scheduled for 9 months.
Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Motion has been made and properly second. There's no discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Thank you. Motion passed.
Next-
Southern State Sales, go ahead.
Sorry, we have 4 purchase orders for your consideration.
Okay.
The first purchase order is for Southern Sales in the amount of $30,386 for replacement of 2 wastewater pumps at our Cherry Blossom Pump Station. These pumps are a sole source purchase, as this station was designed and constructed around the specific suction lift pump. We are replacing the original pumps in this station. The pumps have been in service well beyond their service life, and as you can read in the description, full replacement is required. Replacement of these pumps is a budgeted purchase within the FY23 budget.
Okay?
You want to just take all
Yeah.
4
You
purchase
did.
orders together?
Yep.
Sure. Next, we have Evoqua Water Technologies in the amount of $53,307 for carbon resin exchange at wastewater treatment plant number 2. This is a sole source chemical purchase, and it is a reimbursable expense from TMMK. It is a treatment material that is required for us to meet biomonitoring requirements on our discharge permit. We purchase carbon about every 6 months, and this is a budgeted purchase. Next is the purchase order for Judy Construction in the amount of $3,151,360.20. This is for work completed in January of 2023. As requested by council members Allen and Hambrick, we are working on formatting additional documentation appropriate for these monthly updates regarding both progress from a work and spending standpoint, and schedule included in the project milestones. Those are not yet included in your council packet, but are as follows. From a budget perspective, we're at 45.9% complete, with 26.2% of that being work complete and 19.7% stored materials. From a schedule perspective, we're at 49.6% complete of the milestone of beneficial use, and that is when we can receive new flow. Finally, we have a purchase order for Brenntag in the amount of $12,780 for purchase of sodium hypochlorite or bleach for the water treatment plant. This is our primary disinfectant. We bid this chemical as well as shop it each time that we purchase it, and this supply will last approximately 30 to 45 days.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor, for those 4.
Second.
Motion made and second. Are there further question or discussion?
Yeah, couple questions. Are you still seeing an escalation in cost due to chemicals? Is it still going up, or is it kind of leveled out?
It depends on the chemical. In some cases, they're actually coming back down. We do have our chemical bids that we always start with that, but we are calling around and getting current bids or a current amount before we place our orders to make sure we're getting the best buy.
And will the milestone schedules be ready for the next month?
We will do our best, yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, any further question or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say likewise. All right, motion carry. Next is the South Sewer Extension Municipal Order approving change order numbers 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you, Sean and Jeff. Today is a very busy day and last week with meetings on wastewater treatment plant 1, so we had to divide and conquer things tonight. I hope you will see by the amount of items on your agenda tonight that after the council's hard work and the very big lift on getting rates where they need to be, we're ready to really get moving on some work that that we've had to kind of sit on the last few months. So we are moving forward on a lot of fronts, and that will continue. Related to this second to last item on South Sewer Extension, this is kind of a house cleaning, cleanup related change order, and I want to walk you through it. Need to start by going back to year 2020, where we received construction bids for the project in October, late October, and that bid, via bid bond, it was good from the contractor for 3 months. But during the next 5 months, that's November of 20 through March of 21, the city, the utility, and the then owner of the mobile home park were still negotiating the user agreement by which this project is, all of the responsibilities are documented. And that is not the current owner, that's the previous owner that was negotiating the user agreement with us. So during the months April of 21 through September of 21, then we were in a condemnation and mediation issue on securing the final easement and property purchase that was required for the project. So the contractor submitted a winning bid, and they had to hold that bid for 11 months, so 8 months past what they were obligated to. And during that time period, 2020, 2021, I'll remind everyone that's when we were experiencing the worst of the COVID-related supply chain issues and price escalations. So the city, the utility, and the mobile home park owner and the contractor, we agreed to a contract increase for the first 5 months that he held the bid past that 3-month period. And that escalation was included in the original contract approval by the city council. So the contractor requested an increase for additional escalations on that last 3 months. And at the time we said, we just approved that escalation for those first 5 months. We're going to bill to that. And then when we get to a point in the construction process, if you need to bill to the second amount of escalations, then we'll take that back and we'll evaluate that and ask the board and council to consider that at that time. So at this point in the construction period, we are ready to recommend approval for this second set of escalations that's documented in the packet as change order number 1. Contractor is ready to bill to some of these pay app items within that change order. And then additionally, we're also ready to recommend change order 2 and 3. And we've included all the documentation from our consultant that checks all this. That's Hazen. So change order 1 related to price escalations. And keep in mind that number is not just the Georgetown municipal number. That is proportionally distributed between us and the mobile home park owner, as the original contract is, as every expense is on this project. Change order number 2, it's related to improvements within the park that Division of Plumbing at the state required after the project bid, and that cost is borne 100% by the owner of the mobile home park. We don't pay a penny of that. That's only to their benefit. It was required from a regulatory standpoint, but that is 100% their cost, documented in the user agreement. They understand that and have signed off on that. Change order number 3, it's a credit. That is where we have reduced some scope items, and we're ready to recommend that now that we're sure that we're going to be under the budget on those. So change order number 3, that's a credit. It's similar to 1, that's an adder. It's proportional on who sees the benefit of that credit. And we're working out kind of how that all shakes out on the actual quantities on the project. So most importantly, I want to point out that these changes have been anticipated, and they're included in our 2022-2023 rate study. They're included in the 2023 rate ordinance that we just passed. Our rates support these change orders. It's also already included in the KIA loan. None of this is a surprise. We just wanted to make sure that we got to a point where the contractor actually had to bill to these line items in the contract. I'll point out now, we do anticipate further change orders on the project related to cost of decommissioning the package plants in the mobile home park. That cost is 100% attributable to the mobile home park owner, not Georgetown Municipal, but that will be something contractually that we have to walk through and approve. And we also anticipate an overall credit on the project that'll be settled with a final adjusting change order at the end of the project. To date, as I said, the project is tracking under budget. So if you're asking yourself why we're requesting an additive change order for change order number one, if we're tracking overall under budget, I will remind you that we have over 8 sources of funding on this project. That's city, fiscal court, Georgetown Municipal, Mobile Home Park, Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, then what else? KIA, 319, and non-coal grants. Specific funds have to go towards specific work items on the contract. For example, the 319 money, it can only be spent on service laterals in the park. So even though we're expecting an overall reduction because of how the accounting works and tracking of the funds, we do need to go ahead and recommend these for approval. As I said, the funds are task-specific. So in the end, we think there will be a net reduction, and we'll be bringing those recommendations as they're ready. I'll stop there and ask you if you have any questions on change orders 1, 2, and 3.
Chase, overall, how far along are we with the project now?
Original construction completion date is September of this year. Due to just weather days that we've seen we're anticipating that we will be at completion likely, I'll say, end of this year, beginning of next year. I'm thinking December, January. All the work in the mobile home park is done except for a few remaining connections. All of the major transmission line is done, and the last piece is finishing the pump station, which we're almost out of the ground.
Now, there a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Second?
Second.
Motion made, properly second. Are there further discussion? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Motion carry.
The last item is just discussion only, nothing in your council packet on the senior discount, but I wanted you to know I've had questions about the readiness of that. The senior discount is what we had pledged to make sure we implement with the new rate structure. We're ready to go. The Board of Commissioners has approved that discount in the policy language. However, our outside counsel and the city attorney, in doing some digging to make sure we do this correctly, we are creating a new billing class, and if that happens, that needs to be memorialized in a ordinance approved by the city, and it's actually 2 separate ordinances, if I'm stating this correctly, and we are shooting to have the first of the 2 at the next council meeting for a recommended first reading. So that's not going as quickly as anticipated because we didn't know it had. I thought it could just be done as part of office policy. The IT portion, the software portion of the billing system is ready to go. We just, in order to make sure we do this the correct way, we need the 2 ordinances. Is that correct, Evan?
Yeah, and I believe there's a public hearing required as well.
Okay.
So it creates a new class of sewer users, so it requires a lot procedurally, but I mean, I think as long as, the board's approved it, as long as the council is still supportive and interested in hearing those ordinances, like Chase said, we can get that process moving.
Chase, when is the rate going into effect? Is it April? 1st of April?
First of this month.
1st of this month. So as we move forward to do the ordinances, because I know we're all interested in the discount, would it be able to be retroed?
I don't know the answer to that right now. Let me check into it and see.
Thank you.
I think that's probably, we wanted to have it for the first. Let me make sure that from a software standpoint, we can do something retroactively.
Okay, thank you.
Chase, go ahead, Alonzo.
Yeah, for the discount, the individual over 65 has to opt in. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that means they have to go down to GMWSS, and how do they opt in? What's the process?
Yes and no there. If a senior citizen has already opted in for the senior rate on solid waste, we'll just carry over from there. If you're a customer that is, say, outside the city limits that has not opted in for the garbage, or if you're inside the city limits and you haven't done that yet, you'll just come to the GMWSS office, show proof of age, and we will get that discount added.
What's the age?
65.
I'll be down.
Chase, I do have a question.
Yes,
We
get in there.
touched on it the other day in
know I
a
don't look
phone call. We have quite a few that are disabled within Georgetown. Is this something that we can look at adding those into, I know it's not the senior discount, but is there something we can look at adding them, especially those that are, 75, 80, up to 100% on disability?
More than happy, and I'm agreement with you that we need to look into that. That was not something, an analysis that was performed before the new implementation of the new rate ordinance. We can still look at that and evaluate that, and then it's just a question of figuring out how that can be applied from a policy standpoint. On age, I can check an ID. On
Right, like
disability, if there's a mechanism for that we can apply that fairly to everybody, I'm more than happy.
Or they can apply for the homestead exemption from PBA.
I just want to just step in here just real quick. I know that Tammy was working on, when we were doing this all last year, and she had given Willow some information on how to go about maybe doing that additionally. So when Willow gets back, maybe you or Sandra could get with her and come up with that program. I think it's pretty simple to do, and Willow will help do that.
Another question, what's the
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the communication process for the public to know about the 65 and older? The communication process for the public to know about the discounts?
Not sure yet. I know that we have put that, Sean, if we put that website and Facebook, or, okay, so we'll do that.
Can you put it on the bill? Can you put it on the water bill?
We could certainly look at that.
I think that would be the easiest way. If you're 65 or older, come down to the water company. Just let it be known, and then they can call and ask how to do it. And the graphic.
Front page?
Front page.
I'm positive.
He's sitting right over here. He said, and the graphic.
That's a good idea, the bill.
That's the update on that part. Happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Thank you, Chase.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, now we got the city attorney. We're talking about A, the resolution authorizing the city to opt in for opiate settlement.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned, I don't know if I've mentioned it to the full council, but council will recall that last year, actually I think it was 2021, the council authorized Mayor Prather to opt into a nationwide settlement for opioid abatement through the distributors and manufacturers of opioids that have contributed to the nationwide epidemic that is opioid addiction. So we're on that next round where it's reached retailers. So Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, I'm forgetting one or two, but that settlement, that it's kind of structured this similarly to the last one where cities have to actively opt in, and the settlement statewide is dependent on the number of local government entities that opt in. So this resolution simply authorizes Mayor Jenkins to sign the forms that have been sent to the city in order to opt in, and then we will, just like the last one, receive payments over the course of, I think, 18 years. We've already started to receive some payments on the first settlement, and there will be discussions about how the council wants to spend that money. The statute pretty clearly defines acceptable expenses, but it'll be good discussion there. There's a lot of good community discussion around this issue as well. There's 50% of the funding for the settlement goes to local governments, to cities and counties, and the other 50% is administered through an advisory commission. So it's essentially grant funding that even cities that have already receive their direct allocation can apply for that funding. So we've got a lot of active community members talking about how we can capitalize on that funding and get it into our community to abate the issue that we all see every day. So this is just authorizing Mayor Jenkins to opt in.
Motion.
Motion. Second. Are there further discussion?
Yeah, a question, who's working on it? You said there's a lot of people working on this. Who specifically is working on it too?
So there are a lot of local nonprofits, and actually we are pretty fortunate. We have a Scott County resident that sits on the advisory commission, so she helps evaluate those applications and has a better pulse on understanding the process. But she has convened kind of a local group with Mayor Jenkins, Judge Covington, EMS representatives, GPD representatives, county attorney.
Sick Karen Butcher?
Yes, yeah. I know Amen House, Elizabeth Village, ASAP, Scott
Gathering
County
Place.
Against Drugs. all
Gathering
kinds of-
place, yeah.
There's a lot of places that will be able to use this funding for families, children, been, dishomed and different things like that. It'll be well used, I'm sure.
Yep.
I know Isaiah House is new to our community. Are they part of
They're
this
at
as
the
well?
table, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And also Scott County Schools too is also on that. So I think we are trying to get everybody to the table, so everybody can have some input. So Karen's doing a real good job of getting all the players in that needs to hear this. And of course, we're also, we have our new homeless and so on. I may want to get her involved too. That's is it Karen?
Martha Kent?
Martha, get Martha Keaton involved because she's our new director, and she will get her to come to the table also on that because, we want to make sure we touch all the bases.
Does the council get update on the status of the activity?
Yep. So we'll update you on that. Since Deb and I are probably going representing this group. So I have a motion made and properly second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, say likewise. Motion carry. Okay, sing along. Okay. All right, next discussion, City Hall renovation project. I don't know that song.
Well, I have a ringtone. Mine's Can't Stop That Feeling.
Yeah. Okay. Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is just an agenda item for discussion, no actions being requested of the council. I know we had a work session a week ago today, and the council considered two topics. Both of those are in some capacity on tonight's agenda, just to make sure that we continue moving forward, even if that doesn't require a true action item tonight. As you know, the City Hall project was presented, a lot of information. You could kind of tell everybody was digesting both topics because there wasn't a ton of discussion from the council. But I included this on the agenda because I will note too, you notice it's called a special called meeting still at the top of the agenda. The reason for that being that the council passed a resolution 2 years ago, I think it was at this time, that regular meetings be held at the water company when we were addressing spacing issues and things like that. And that resolution has not been repealed yet. I'm guessing the council is going to want to repeal that, so we will do that next meeting. So I put this on the agenda because it's a special called meeting, and I wanted the public to be aware that it was on for discussion, and I know council's been asked to give some direction on their thoughts on the project, so I'll open the floor.
Who wants to go first? I don't care to go first.
Go first.
Okay, I do know that the money has been budgeted for the renovation. And after listening to what the engineers and architects had to say, they kind of broke it down and gave us number 1, number 2, and number 3. And the thought process was going in and maybe just doing number 3, which was just doing the outside, but that was not going to do anything on the inside, which is where we have a lot of issues with mold and water and different things like that. So doing the whole project, number 1 was going to be like 11.2 million. And if we did number 2 and not do the top level, it was going to be 10.2 million. The only thing I want to say about that is what I got from them was that these are not hard numbers. So in giving them direction to get hard numbers doing the overall project, because if we try to come in and do something later, it's going to cost us money because we have to tear it out. I think, myself personally, that those numbers, well, if we did the whole project, would probably come in that number 2 spot for the whole thing. But the other thing we need to stop and think about, and I think we have a resolution passed for this, correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, that we can pay for it, but there's a resolution that we could pay ourselves back when we got funding. Now, I don't know how old that resolution is, but it could probably be extended, could it not?
Yeah, and just, you usually have about 18 months to 3 years. There's 2 different time period triggers.
I can't remember how long that was.
I'll have to go back and look because I can't remember. It was last year
Okay.
sometime, because I think we did it kind of in conjunction with when we approved the architect's contract, because you
Okay.
can capture architectural fees, construction manager fees, and construction costs.
Right.
There are 2 different triggers. One is, I think, 18 months or 3 years from first expenditure, and the other one is so much time from completion. It's probably 3 years from first expenditure or 18 months from completion, but it's all in the resolution, and we can.
But we can update that resolution, correct? Or not? We have to just stay with what we've already
We have
done?
to look into the,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not pulled up right now. It's kind of lengthy, but we could certainly look into that. I don't know that I think it's still good, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, like I said, the triggers are something like project completion and first expenditure, so I think we would need to look at that. Our first expenditure to the architect, I think, would have been probably sometime last year for the full contract, but.
The city makes a declaration of official intent within 60 days after payment of such capital expenditures. 2, the city makes a reimbursement allocation within 18 months after the later of the date of the capital expenditure was paid, or the date the property acquired with the capital expenditure was placed in service, but in no case later than 3 years after the capital expenditure is paid. So we'll have to dissect that. That's
Yeah.
kind of a
Yeah.
mouthful, but.
How often do you have a bond counsel in the house when you ask these questions? If you want some advice.
No, well, I don't know.
Well, we can take bonding, but I don't want to pay a high interest rate. I can tell you that right now.
No, we've got time, because I think it's 18 months from placed in service. but,
Okay.
Yeah.
The key point is you just want to have one in place before you put a shovel in the dirt, so to speak. You can always reimburse yourself for architectural fees, engineering fees, anything like that, and as long as it doesn't exceed 20% of the borrowing. So, from that standpoint, you're okay. Generally, the 18-month, 30 months, 36-month periods aren't too big a deal unless, until you get to the end. They usually run until the end of the project, so practically they're not too much of a worry. I just tell people, make sure you get your resolution in place before you actually get to real construction. You're actually doing something that you're doing. So if you guys are way ahead of the curve, I would just say make sure your dollar amount and the project descriptions are good. And you should be good.
Yeah, we've included 11 million in the resolution, and the resolution passed about a year ago, close to a year ago.
Okay.
So,
I feel like that we need to get hard
So
numbers,
we're just going to use that one?
because it's going to be hard for us to move forward with anything without the hard numbers. That's my thought. And we also own a piece of property, the city owns a piece of property that needs to be taken care of. It's our responsibility to see that it happens. It doesn't need to be ran down. And we've done a lot of other previous projects ahead of it, which was the towers, which we split with the county, which we paid cash for. And then we did Lanes Run Business Park, and we did that with the county, and we paid cash for that. It depleted our fund balance some, but we've built that back up since that time. We had 21 million when we did that, and then now we have 27 million. So, I mean, it can be done and still re-put all that back. And remember, it's a capital project. It doesn't require recurring revenue.
All right, any other further discussion on this?
now I said no actions required, but I do want to remind the council that those numbers, I know that, like Connie mentioned, they're going to go back and sharpen the pencil, but they will need to know which route.
One or two.
Which number the council wants them to sharpen their pencil for. So it's kind of the nod, we want option 1, 2, or 3, so they can go back. I do know, I've been in touch with the construction manager. He and his team have been kind of continuing to whittle down the numbers and look at areas for cost savings. Here's another one that they brought up. $500,000 was included in options 1 and 2 for furniture. That, just pretending the council said, let's do the whole project. It accommodates for future growth. So one, they believe that number to be high, just to be safe, but also we wouldn't need to furnish all those offices right away because they anticipate interns, they anticipate common space. So you really, you need the common spaces that the public is, enjoying to be furnished, and you need the offices that are currently occupied to be furnished. But as the growth occurs, you can furnish those offices. So they thought that number was really high, so they were gonna work on getting kind of better figures based on our current staffing needs and our current public space needs. So that's an area where you really could shave $200,000 or $300,000 off of the project. So they are engaging in that, but they will need kind of direction as far as what the council wants to do as the body that will have to approve the contract.
I think there's two things that's on our mind is that we just got through doing the water thing, and we haven't done our first budget yet. And we know what's on the table, and we probably ought to just do our budget first because we've not had a chance to do that, and maybe revisit the 1st of July, have that conversation again once we know, excuse me, where we lie, because I know salaries are important in this budget that's coming up, and that's recurring revenue, and we don't really know where that recurring revenue is coming from yet, or how much we're going to have to take out of our fund balance to balance our 23-24 budget. I think that that's probably what's on our mind that we want to get through. So I think they would be open to wait until July to get direction.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Connie, because, even though the project, it's a capital project, it's already budgeted, it's already in there, perception, reality is that we care more about City Hall than we do taking care of the city employees. I would rather it wait until, like you say, July. Let's see what the budget's going to be and then move forward, because, we've got a lot of police officers, a lot of firefighters that are looking at us going, where are we going to fall in this? Oh, you care more about that building than me? Bye. And then,
Well, I want to address that. We have taken care of the firefighters and the police officers.
No doubt.
I know, and this has been on our agenda because that's why it's been budgeted. So I want to clarify that, but I don't disagree that we should wait.
And it is concerning, too, to hear from the architects that debris is falling off the outside of the building.
Right.
And potentially could injure pedestrians. And this inside of the building, some of the concerns there with mold. So we want to have a safe place to meet and a safe place for our constituents. So we do have to balance all that out and kind of talk that through.
Devin, I'll apologize in advance if I don't understand this, but if they can sharpen their pencil on one, why can't they sharpen their pencil on all of it? On each option?
They can, but the reason that they're having a hard time is that with the uncertainty of where the project's going, contractors are frustrated and they're throwing high numbers out there because there are contractors that are saying, I'm not even gonna bid on this if you might only do the exterior. Like, I've got plenty of work, I'm not wasting my time. They think that bids came in high and that they didn't get bidders on certain trades because, one, the project's complicated and there are a lot of easier projects out there. But two, they bid it with so many alternates that bidders were skittish, essentially. So they think if they knew the council only wanted to do XYZ or the council only wanted to do ABC, they can get people to the table and engage them because they know that the council is serious about the project and they know the council knows what direction they want to go with the project. So
I think our first council meeting in July, we can put it back on our agenda and we can give direction as to which way we want to go and what we want to do, because at that point, we're going to have our budget done.
I agree.
We'll have more.
I agree.
Definitely.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
two more questions to ask then. Just so we've done all of our homework, or this is my opinion, just so we've done all of our homework and we can answer questions from the general public, I'd like to know what it would cost, an approximate cost to tear this building down and rebuild it. And then also, if we had property at a different location, what it would cost to build a building similar in square footage to this building. Just so we have those answers in case we're asked.
And I've requested that and haven't gotten the answer yet from the
Okay.
architects.
Okay. Any other discussion?
We'll need to check, if that's the direction the council wants to go, I will need to check what our contract with the construction manager looks like, because we did pay $50,000 for pre-construction services.
That is true.
So I don't know, I do want to just make that, I want to make the council aware that the investment in the architecture contract, I need to check both of those just to know, so as long as that's the direction you want to go, obviously if there are changes to that contract, they'll come back to you all.
I just think it's safer and we feel more comfortable just knowing what we're dealing with. So let's email us or have it at our next meeting,
Wait.
the information about the contract.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Devin.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Okay, city engineer. First is A, the municipal order approving bids for cemetery wall repair.
Eddie's busy.
Thank you, everybody, mayor and council. Had a number of items on here. Mainly they're construction bids. First one is the cemetery wall that collapsed and fell down. We received 2 bids for that work, and the low bid was from Dixie Restoration. They also did the last section that fell down, as y'all remember, about 2 years. How many years has that been now, Devin, do you remember?
I think like 4 years ago.
Okay, 4 years ago. And that bid was this bid is for $55,699.20 to repair that section of wall. The second one, do we want to take this one at a time, Devin? And
I think take the first 2 separately and
And
then
then we
put one
rest
to
them.
your
Yep.
next 4 together.
Is it just the section that fell is
Yes, ma'am.
55?
Yep.
How many feet do you know about?
it was like 480 square feet, so we did length times height.
Okay.
Length times height. So we took the bid in as a unit price on square footage.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mayor, I make a motion to accept.
Motion been made,
Second.
second. Are there further discussion? All those in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say likewise. Motion carried. Next.
Yes, sir. The next bid is for the Bourbon Street Stormwater Replacement Project. That's a stormwater drain that runs down Bourbon Street near the police station that we discovered during a camera inspection had collapsed, and we have been planning this project and budgeted this project over the course of the last year. And we received several bid. The low bid that we received for this was $109,118.66 from Leak Eliminators. So I ask approval for that contract to move forward.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made,
Second.
second. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say likewise. Motion carried.
The next 4 bids, C, D, E, and F, are all related to our annual unit price contracts that we do for road repair and also concrete work for sidewalks and ADA ramps and that kind of thing. The first one is for asphalt and stone materials. This is where we either purchase ourselves to fix potholes and that kind of thing from the quarry. It was received from Hamilton Hinkle. The second one is for concrete construction. That's for sidewalk repairs, ADA ramps, curb and gutter, that type of work. That's from H&W Concrete. The third is for pavement markings, striping of streets, edge lines, center lines, arrows, that sort of thing, the markings. That was also from Hamilton Hinkle. And the last one is for asphalt construction. That's where we pave streets primarily. We use that primarily to pave streets, also from Hamilton Hinkle. So I ask for approval for C, D, E, and F.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say likewise. Those carry.
Item G, municipal order for the Osborne Way storm sewer repairs. That's the project out by Walmart that we discovered had failed. The storm drain had failed underneath the road. We received one bid for that work from Lagco Construction, and the amount of that bid was $167,701. We did split out the street repair work separate from the pipe work, so we could take advantage of our MAP funds and some of those other funds that we have to do the paving and to put the pavement back. So ask for approval of that contract.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion is made.
I'll second.
It's properly second. Other discussion?
That 167 already has the paving pulled. So the actual bid was in the 260
Yes.
range.
Thanks. That's correct.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. All right.
Item H is a resolution requesting approval for the application for the MAP emergency grant funds for Osborne Way, the same project as G. We are, with your permission, we're going to go after funding through the MAP program, the municipal aid program. That's the road funds that we receive from the state from your gasoline tax, to consider this emergency repair and to see if we can get into their 80-20 match program where we would pay 20% and we could get 80 from them with your all's approval.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. Other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say likewise. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
All right, item number 12 on the agenda, resolution authorizing fire station number 4, design, bidding, and safer grant application. And I asked Chief Thompson to come by again to maybe
Mayor, Council, I'm here at your all's disposal, so whatever questions you all have. I hope that I presented the case strong enough last Monday, but I'm here for whatever questions you all may have.
Mayor, I make a motion, we accept A and B for the fire department.
motion made, properly second.
Second it.
Motion is made, properly second. So this ought to be a vote.
I have some questions
We have questions?
too.
Yes.
and discussion.
Okay, discussion.
This falls under the same thing as the City Hall does, as far as I'm concerned. I know that they want to apply for the SAFER grant. I feel like that we need to get our first budget underneath of us. I feel like we need to find out where the revenue's coming from. I know we've talked about it, but I think that that can be further looked into as far as recurring. And I know that we talk about it being 1.2 million after 3 years, but that's not going to be a logical situation because everything goes up, so salaries are going to go up. So I think that, you know, we've been presented with it. it's a good idea, but I know that the county's going to build that EMS structure no matter what, and we would be able to build onto it at any given time, and we can apply for a SAFER grant next year, and we can discuss this again in July after we get through our first budget and know where our recurring revenue's coming from.
Any other discussion?
One of my main concerns is with the the grant. It covers 3 years. Salaries after those 3 years are going to be a lot more than the 1.2, 1.4 million. Of course, I have reservations about where that's going to come from after the grant is out. Right now, we just don't have the revenue streams in place, I don't feel, to cover those in case, something happens. At the last meeting, or at the workshop, you mentioned taxing districts. Have you found out any more about those?
Honestly, I haven't had a chance to
Okay.
look into that more. I wouldn't bank on that one, just, I don't want to give you false information on that.
What I have found out, and Devin, you correct me if I'm wrong, taxing districts are more of a county issue. They require approval by the fiscal court.
There are taxing districts specific to fire. So I think you're not wrong, but I don't know that we're completely inhibited from imposing them as a city.
And see, I think there's just too many, to me, I have a lot of questions remaining about, where are we going to cover these salaries at in the future? I mean, I agree with Councilwoman Tackett that we haven't even done our first budget yet with this new council. We have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about where the revenue is going to come from. We've got issues that we need to address first, I believe, with salaries. That's foremost in my mind, is addressing those and taking care of those concerns first. We do, I realize we need the station, but right now we have an agreement in place with the county to help us out there. So I still have a lot of concerns and reservations in my mind about this, so.
There's something else I want to tag on to the back of that too, because this has been talked about for a long time, especially since our community has grown so much. And that is hiring a consultant to look into whether or not we should merge our fire departments. Now, I know there's controversy either way, but the thing about it is that the county spends a lot of money and the city spends a lot of money. And I think that if we bring someone in to analyze it all, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. But we can say we did it instead of just talk about it. And I think that we can maybe move in that direction moving forward to finding out if it's something that it should be looked into. Because in all actuality, I mean, let's just be honest about this. I mean, right now in salaries, and it's public knowledge, but the county pays out $7 million in salary, and the city pays out $7 million. Is that correct, Stacy? On fire.
I believe the total fire department budget is around 7. So I think the salaries are 6 point something. Obviously,
Okay.
the bulk of that is
My point in
salaries.
saying that is that the city and county, as a county, I pay county taxes as well, so I'm paying that. And I just think that we need to be diligent about whether or not we could do, if we should merge them, because we're so big now. I just think it's something that we should look at and say we did.
May I, please?
Yeah, because this is something we talked about in our committee today, and I think he's going to tell you some of the drawbacks of possible issues with doing that.
Well, here's we've had conversations about mergers. I've been with the fire department for 18 years, and when I started, we were merging last year. It's always going to be in the conversation. A couple different things. I mentioned last week, merging doesn't stop these gaps. Merging isn't going to fill these voids that we have with the different coverage areas that we have. And I'm fine to open up to any conversation that we have when it comes to having somebody come in and have those conversations, do studies. Any study that you have coming in is going to be experts using NFPA standards. They're going to come in, they're retired fire chiefs that are consultants, and they're going to be telling you the same thing that we're telling you, that the need is there, the staffing is needed, and the areas that we're talking about is needed. So as far as the studies, I know we did one, Chief Bruin, when was you?
2003,
We did do a study at that
along with
point.
Connector Road.
Yeah. So I'm fine with doing studies. Reoccurring expenses is something that I think that we're going to have to tackle regardless of what that is. And that's going to be with Chief Allgood and myself, Chief Bruin, when it comes to Public Works. It's going to be an issue that we're going to have to tackle. And I understand completely, and I'm not trying to overstep by any means, so please don't take it that way. I'm just passionate about this. There's a difference between wants and needs, and this is a need. And I know that we're talking about moving forward and we're doing certain things, and the thing that I liked about this was it allows an opportunity for us to be able to buy some time. And if we're talking about recurring expenses, what is that time frame that we're looking at? And if it's within a 3 to 4 year window, this gives us an opportunity to be able to do that.
I want to answer that question because just recently we did recurring expenses with the insurance premium tax. We went from 5% to 3%. It allowed us to get about 2.7% to 8%. That allowed us to have about 2.4 million in revenue. We used the majority of that up in salary, did we not, Stacy? So that's where we upgraded the salaries for our first responders, everybody really. So that's been exhausted. We did the 911 fee, and that's over almost $1 million so that 911 can do what they're doing. And then there's other revenue that, we probably need to look at stormwater. We've not done that yet. As you see that needs to be done, that's a need as well. So I'm not saying that we don't need it. I'm just saying that the fire department does a great job doing what they're doing until we can figure out where that rest of that revenue is coming from. And I know that Alan and Alonzo are looking into those things, but they've not been established. And Stacy can correct me, but I know sitting in there and looking at forwarding what our revenue stream is 20 years from now with our fund balance, our expenses far exceed what our revenue stream is. So I'm looking futuristically at what those revenue streams would be. And yes, we can get a safer grant, but that's when it's gone, and then we're gonna have to pay for it. So I just think that the revenue stream needs to be looked at before we step into that.
I think something else I think we talked about today is that, by doing it now and waiting, I think we'll be thinking about 25% higher on the actual building of it. So you're looking at another, $4,000 or $5,000 added to the amount of building the building. So just something to be concerned with. Yeah.
Mayor, if I could add one thing. We're sitting here talking about Fire Station 4, and, I'm kind of one of those different ones. I've been out there with them. I've been with the police department, with Public Works. We should not be talking about Fire Station 4 right now. Truthfully, we should be talking about Fire Station number 6, because number 4 should be already built out on that end of town. Fire Station 5 should be built out by Canewood because there's residents in Canewood that are outside the 4-minute window. So we should be talking about the expansion to Fire Station 6 by now. And I'm not blaming anyone, but it's one of those situations that we've got into now. Well, we'll just push it off. And I understand the revenue streams, and I know we've got to look at those, and that's where it's got to come from. But at what point is protection of the citizens, and where's that balance at? We've got to figure that out.
Well, I think when you talk about mutual aid and automatic aid, we have an automatic aid with the county, that if there's something that goes on structurally, I've been told, that whoever's closest gets there first. So we are covered. It's not like we're not covered.
No,
I just think that we can put off the SAFER grant for another year until we get our first year budget underneath of us and figure out where other revenue is coming from, because there is not other revenue coming in that's recurring.
You know, I'm new to this, and I understand that we got to find the, you know, for the salaries and all that. Chief Thompson, them, they've put a lot of work into it, and I know put a lot of work into getting the grant prepared or whatever. I mean, to me, it seems like a no-brainer. And like I said, I'm new, and this is my opinion, but, you know, the first idea was for a 18,437 square foot building, and Chief Thompson and them have got it down to 6,350. They're not trying to do nothing extravagant. They're just trying to keep our community safe, I mean, that area is really growing out there, and they need that coverage, you know? I don't know how long you all have been discussing this, but it seems like you keep, like I said, discussing. When are you going to make a decision? You know? You keep pushing it back. I mean, it's almost like the City Hall renovation and all this. It's too much. It's like it's been discussed 10 years ago or this year. We need to do something, but it seems like a no-brainer to do this, you know? I understand you got to have money for the salaries, but they feel confident. They can't say we're going to get the grant, but let's try it. Let's see if we can do it. I think you said something about if we don't get it now, how'd you say, and then we can apply for it?
The ideal situation, the reason that I think that the grant would be amazing if we could get it now. We are a very young department. I'm sure Chief can attest as well with the police department. We're a very young department. The average age of our guys is 8 years on the job. When you put that down to firefighters, it's more about 4 years on the job. So if we were able to get the grant now before the building was actually completed, it would give us about a year for us to be able to get a little bit of experience underneath their belt before we was able to release them out, because you're looking at a new person on every single apparatus that we own. If this isn't a way that you all would like to go, I would strongly urge you all to consider building the station and applying for the SAFER grant next year, because we're not going to get a better price on that station. We've worked really hard to get the pricing down to where it needs to be. I think that's something that's an option too that's on the table, but first and foremost, I think it would be important for us to be able to go on and just move forward. If that's not an option, then I would strongly suggest, or at least request, not suggest, request that you all move forward with the station.
I think that we need to take into consideration, and I'm just going to throw this out there, that, you know, interest rates are at 7.5 right now. People can't really qualify for homes. When you talk about doing that, and then you have Silicon Valley Bank going disrupt, and I realize it's tech, but there's another one going under in New York. We're looking at a recession, and we're trying to project futuristically salaries that we really don't know anything about right now. And I don't think it's gonna hurt. We've talked about it. You're right, Sandra. We have talked about it for years, but there's a lot of things we talk about for years that, I mean, until we can finally do it, because it does come down to revenue. It does come down to the money. And then everybody wants the money. And you do have to like narrow it down. And so, you know, I know that our fire department, our police department, they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They do a great job. But it's also our responsibility. We need it. And I'm not saying we don't need it,
No,
but I am
totally
saying
agree.
we have to be fiscally responsible for what we're doing. And once that SAFER grant's gone in 3 years, we're looking at a lot more money that we don't have coming in. I just think we can find a way for the money to come in. Exhaust that.
And then I'm trying to understand about, you know, when you say have consultants come in, I mean, that's more money that we're spending out.
It's $20,000 or $30,000 probably, but at least, you know what? It's been talked about for 20 years as well.
Okay.
So why not spend that money to find out and say, we did? And they'll either tell us it won't or they won't. And Tim's probably right. I'm not going to dispute that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that it's been talked about. And so let someone come in and do that. And then by that time, and we can do that here in the next few months, after we do our budget. We can do that and say, okay, we did it, and
Right.
then we look at the SAFER grant next year.
I understand. I just know my heart right now is of course.
I understand.
Y'all know where I'm
I get
at.
passionate about things as well, and
Yeah.
I totally get that, and I'm not saying that it's not
So,
needed.
my question to you is that, so what do you, so, and I understand what you're talking about, getting consultant, but here, my issue is this. If we're bringing in somebody to look at something and they're gonna tell us the same thing, that's $30,000 we wasted. I think he knows. I think he knows where it's at. Okay? And, that's why I'm sure he's done some research and effort on this, so, and hopefully that he's given information that, that's something to think about. So I'm just saying that.
I don't think the analysis is on the operations side. I think it's on the administrative side in terms of looking at that. That's where the potential is with a merged unit.
Yeah.
It's on the administrative side where we would see some funding. I'm not advocating either way. I'm just saying that that's where I see that. I'm not questioning the firefighters, the number that's going to be there based on NFPA.
Chief, I'm not questioning the need for the station. I know there is a definite need, and I totally support it, but, I just question whether right now with, going into this budget, I guess a question to you, besides the possible additional building cost if we wait a year, what are the other impacts or ramifications of waiting 1 year?
Well, I think for one, to be quite honest, we did sharpen the pencil quite a bit to get this down to 3.2. And I think that if we do wait, and we're talking about a potential increase in, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million, that kind of takes away some of that pencil sharpening. I think that we work so hard to do. We do have an automatic agreement. We have mutual aid agreements with surrounding counties. But again, what I just try to stress is that the county has their constituents to cover. We have our constituents to cover within the city. They have them in the county. And the automatic agreement works both ways. They can come and help us, but we can go help them just as much. And we help them twice as much as what they do with us because of the south end, going to the trailer park. So we'll make whatever work for the next year. My only thing that I'm asking for consideration, if this is the way that looks like it's going, would be to strongly consider building the station just for the fact of the cost sharing with the county, and let us try for the SAFER grant next year. What that would do is it would push it to where the guys would be coming online right when it was time for the station to be built. There'd be less time for them to get a little bit of experience underneath of them, but it would give us a year, I think, to work on some stuff. The station, I think everybody agrees, is inevitable at one point, down the line. Why don't we just build the station and then let's work toward potentially next year going for the SAFER grant. That gives us a year to put our heads together, try to figure some things out. Now we're looking at 4 years before we go forward with having to pay. Again, for the time frame, we're looking at, if we apply Friday, what it would be is roughly this fall sometime, and you have 6 months from the time that you get accepted the grant before you actually have to hire. So you're looking at February, March next year. It would be February, March of 2027 before you would have to actually start paying the recurring expenses. If we waited next year for the SAFER grant, you're looking at February, March of 2028. That gives us a long time to figure it out. But to be quite honest, guys, at that time, we're going to have to be looking at Station 5. And I know it's not anything anybody wants to hear, but we're a growing community, and you guys got a lot on your plates. I know you do. I'm not trying to take away from that. But
Chief, not to interrupt, I really commend you on your work, and
Absolutely.
you have done an enormous amount of work on this, and what I have said is just that I have reservations about it, but I do like your idea. I'll tell you that straight out. Waiting a year on the SAFER grant.
Yes.
Devin, if we was to do that, do we need to reword the resolution?
Well, I know there's already a motion and a second on the table, but I think
Well,
the way that it's outlined is the resolution was more to show support of the project for the Safer Grant application, whereas I think if the council just
gotcha.
passes the municipal order that gives the architect notice to proceed on developing construction documents, I think that would accomplish that. It wouldn't express support of moving forward with the grant funding for this year, but it would authorize development of construction documents.
So in essence, that would say that we can go ahead and authorize to go in to start the process of building the station, but actually getting the safe grant next year. In that way,
Right, I
if
think,
we wanted to do that.
yeah, if that's the way the council would want to go, somebody would need to, I'm no Robert's Rules professional in any sense, but I think the motion would need to be amended to only approve the municipal order, as opposed to both the resolution and the municipal order.
So in building a station, then we're gonna have utility bills and stuff like that for the first year?
Mike's team is here, so I can let them speak to the construction timeline. We talked about this a lot at the fire committee today. So they estimated 2 to 3 months to develop construction documents. Is that correct, Mike? So being optimistic, if it took them 2 months, that's mid-May. By the time it goes out to bid, bids are accepted and evaluated, a contract's awarded. I mean, you're in
June, July.
June, July, best,
Of next
15 to 18,
year.
this year.
This year.
15 to 18 months from then for construction. So pretty significant time out into the future until beneficial use of the building, certificate of occupancy, all of those things. So I think that timeline is relevant in considering it, but I guess 15 months, best case scenario, out from July would be October 2024. October 2024 at best, probably closer to January 2025.
Which is about when the Safer Grant, if we got awarded that fall, that's about when those guys would be going out anyway. And EMS is going to already be at the station too at that time, whenever it gets built, so there's already going to be utility costs associated.
There's no guarantee on a safe grant, but by building this or starting the process for building this, does that enhance you getting that grant?
There is no guarantees in anything, right? But
Right.
when you're putting in for a Safer Grant, the way that they look, and we were awarded it in 2007, because we had 3 per apparatus, and it ended up putting us up. Chief Bruin got 9 additional guys, so that put us to where we had 4 per apparatus. So if you're going through and depending upon what it is, so there's high priority points. So it's 4 personnel per apparatus. It's getting to 4 personnel per apparatus, or it's allowing you to build a new station. Lexington did it last year. They were able to get that because of the same concept. If we move forward without building the station and put in for the Safer Grant, you're wasting your time. We're not going to get it. If you put in, and us putting in at the same time as going in and building the station, I think it gives us a really good opportunity. If we had the station that was already in construction at the time and we were able to put in for the Safer Grant, I think it just shows the commitment to the federal government, who I think the grant, Chief Johnson, ends up being, what, $4.2 million total grant award we would get if we were to get the grant.
And that's for salaries
And benefits.
and benefits, still.
Mayor.
4.2 million for 3 years, and then after that, the city would take on 4.2 million plus salaries.
Well, it's 4.2 over 3 years.
Oh, okay. So what is it per year, Tim?
About 1 point.
Is it 1.2?
Well, it ended up even forecasting out for anywhere from the 3 to 5% raises over that time period. Ended up being 1.3 to 1.5 is what it was around.
Mayor, if I,
Go ahead.
bear with me a moment if you would.
Sure.
I'm looking at Chief Bruin. I've served with, I think, 5 fire chiefs. Connie, you and I have been with 5.
Yeah.
What you do and what you do every day takes a special person to do it. There's no doubt. And my mind's racing as I'm listening, and I'm numbers, I think last week at our workshop, we talked about in 2006, we were spending $4 million a year just for the city fire department. And today, that number is slightly above $7 million. So $3 additional million per year over a 16 to 17-year period. That's a pretty, most of that was the SAFER grant and salaries and benefits now.
That's increased in salary. We
Built the new building during that time.
no, we added 9 positions in 2007, so that was part of that.
Yeah, so it's salary and benefits. Then I think of the, in all of Scott County, between our city government and our county government, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're spending about $14 million per year with our city fire department and then the county fire department. It's about $14 million per year. We did a study in 2003, and I really believe another study needs to be done. Our county government, we have our first interlocal committee meeting on the 28th. It would be a good time to talk to the county government to see if they're willing to participate in some type of a study. And if they say no, I still believe, and I said it as recently as this afternoon, I think the city needs to hire an outside consultant that's not one of us, not a politician, and look over the big picture. Look at where the growth is happening. What's the priority? Is it a new fire station on the west end, or is it a new fire station on the north end? I think we need to know that. Look at overall our head count, and we hear what you're saying. You and your team have done a significant amount of work, a lot of work. It's not that, I don't think any of us don't, it's not that we don't care.
No.
It's just the fact that we've got to figure out, we got the money to pay for that initial construction, but it's how do you pay for it, whether it's starting next year or starting in 3 years, or starting 4 years, I guess. It would be 4. It's, so that's what I'm looking at. Mayor, I don't mean this to be disrespectful. I don't look at it as being a waste.
Okay.
And I apologize, I don't mean to be disrespectful at all. I think we need to know. We don't know what we don't know.
The other thing, I don't want to interrupt you, but I also want to reiterate and say that, before, the county really had mostly volunteer firemen. They didn't have a staff. When Judge Covington came on, he hired our previous chief to be his chief. So therefore, he's moved up the county fire department. So I'm not saying that we're apples to apples, but I think doing a study, we're going to find out more as to whether or not it would look good to coexist. It's not ever been done. It's always been done this way. And that's why, people don't like change, but it's not going to hurt for us to figure it out. Because the county's buying 2 fire trucks and the city's buying 2 fire trucks.
Can I expand on that, please?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that always comes up too, and that's why I wanted to make the point last time when I brought this up, was just to make sure we talked about merging in general. Number one, it doesn't fill voids. Number two, the county is going to have fire trucks just because NFPA states 10-year front line is what they have on them. You can run reserve for 10 years on that. By the time that you do that, they're usually beat all to hell and they're ready to go anyway.
Right.
Engine or a truck company, you can run 15 years front line. And the thing there's a lot of sticker shock associated with fire service. You go out there and buy $1 million fire truck or $1.5 million ladder truck, and no disrespect, but the same way when we go buy police cruisers, you buy a lot of police cruisers over 10 or 15 years, right? So it's just that initial sticker shock. But when you talk about the county needing a ladder truck, their ladder truck was in 1999. Our engines that we're replacing, it's because you have to do that. It doesn't matter if you're merged or not. You're going to have to replace equipment. You're going to have to buy equipment. You're going to have to build stations, and there will be potentially some administrative things. You're not gonna need two chiefs. So, that'll be one.
That's a big savings.
I think it would be structured differently, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Tim, at all.
I know.
And I know that we have to have that many fire trucks. I'm saying that we have, with the ARP money, the county and the city, we've got 4 fire trucks coming. And a ladder truck, if I'm not mistaken. The county got a ladder truck too.
Do we have any people?
If I can, you were talking about the volunteer fire department. As late as 95, 96, we still had volunteer members on the fire department.
I remember that.
And a lot of the time, a lot of the reason they got phased out is because, at night, they could run wide open and go. But when you responding to a fire at 10 o'clock in the morning, you go through Main and Broadway at 60 mile an hour, it's a problem. So that's when they kind of phased out the volunteer, everybody respond in your own vehicle. So I commend on that. I just wanted to make sure that point was raised, is that, we've had a lot longer than what people think as far as full-time firefighters.
And the county has been full-time for quite some time, too.
Yeah.
Chief Ward is out there now. Mike Fuller, Chief Fuller, they were full-time at that point. They've done part-time that you've had in the past, but they've been full-time for some time.
I'd like to make a recommendation. You can let it go in there, one ear and out the other. All it is my fault. We have our first interlocal committee meeting between the county government and the city government on the 28th of this month. I think that's a topic of discussion we need to have. Are they willing to go move forward with some kind of joint or just a look at the big picture? And if they say yes, then we need to discuss it. If they say no, then I think we need to come back and look at hiring a consultant with looking at only our city fire department and get that done and have a target date to have that done before the end of this calendar year. But have it done no later than December 31st of this year, with a complete analysis of our city fire department, so we don't keep passing the buck, and kicking the can down the road.
Mayor,
That's my recommendation.
Mayor, if I can, I want to withdraw my motion on both, if I can.
And you need a second.
Okay, withdraw both on my motion for both of them and break it up into individuals.
You want to withdraw your second? Withdraw.
He wants to withdraw his motion.
Yes, and he needs a second on that.
Just withdraw your motion completely and then make a new motion.
Right.
So you would have to,
You would have to withdraw your second for me to make a motion on just item A.
Just say I withdraw my
I
second.
mean, item B.
And then you need to say, all in favor?
Yeah, like always.
And
So,
everybody needs to
so
agree
we
with that.
have we can withdraw, so we have a motion to withdraw, and we have a second, and then now, is there further discussion? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say likewise.
Now, I make a motion on that we accept the resolution authorizing Fire Station 4 bidding and the safer
Four.
grant.
We can't do that now.
Re-explain what you're trying to do.
Okay. Where before, I made a motion
To
to
do
accept
both.
A and B.
B.
Now I'm just making a motion for A.
No,
I think you mean B, if I'm understanding. Are you saying you want to proceed with construction but not with the grant?
Correct.
Then that is item B.
Okay,
So-
my mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's make a motion for item B as my motion to accept that municipal order.
So,
Construction?
Yes.
I second that.
so the motion's been made to,
Notice to proceed with Fire Station.
so,
So what would be the purpose of breaking them out? I mean,
So item A expresses support for moving forward with bidding and for applying for the SAFER grant. So that resolution is it was more of an expression of the council's support and intent to move forward with both the construction and the Safer Grant application. Whereas item
And
B
B is only
is a
gives,
municipal order that authorizes Branstetter Carroll to move forward under the contract that the council has already approved, which provides an 8% fee on the project, broken into phases, percentage completion phases, I believe. But that's the same contract that the council approved last year for the schematic design.
So B is municipal order approving Branstetter Carroll notice to proceed to,
Develop construction documents and then put the project out to bid for construction.
so,
Not that I thoroughly confused everyone.
I'm not thoroughly confused. I just feel like, I know that we think that it'd be cheaper if we do the fire station now because the county's building the EMS station. But I've been under the impression the whole time that the county was gonna build out there whether we were or not.
They
So
are.
they were gonna do the EMS station.
right,
And we're paying,
They are.
we've got to pay for half of that building anyway.
get away.
We've already paid
Yeah.
paid that part. The thing that saves us cost is the fact that they're already there,
Mobilizing.
mobilizing, they already have their equipment there. Mr. Carroll's actually
I
here.
guess I'm sorry, I guess it would cost more to come in later and build as opposed to doing it now.
Branstetter indicated that the base increase would be estimated at 25%, which would move the 3.2 to 4. And then each year, they would project 5 to 8% more inflation. in the
So if
project
we
cost.
postpone it, we're looking at least 4 million.
That's their estimate, yes.
Unless we go into a recession,
Right.
which we don't know. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just saying that there's a lot going on that we don't have a crystal ball.
Yep.
And I know I sound like a broken record, but until we see recurring revenue streams for us to be able to do what we need to do, we're gonna get somebody in trouble. It might not be us, but it'll be future council that's gonna have to come up with the money. I don't think that's fair to future council, to set them up that way, if we don't have recurring revenue streams now, which we've already done, and we've ate them up in salary. I'm just, that's it in a nutshell. I know resolutions, we vote on them as a whole, but if you got a first and second, you probably ought to do a roll call. That's my opinion.
So what are we roll calling on?
Roll call on B.
Okay, roll calling on B.
B.
Thank
We
you.
have a motion and a second.
So we have a motion and a second, so now we have a roll call vote, okay?
Sir.
For, this is for B, right? So, here we go.
Here we go.
Can I ask something? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Is it too late?
No.
So the B indicates that the building would be started, and then the SAFER grant would be applied for a year later?
So B would
And that would
authorize
postpone-
development of construction documents. The actual cost of construction will still come back to the council to approve. There will, no matter what, be a fee associated with those construction documents being developed, and 8% of
The
X
total
percentage
cost.
of the 3.2.
Gotcha.
So this vote will incur that cost, but the cost of the actual construction will come back to the council.
Gotcha.
And it
Yeah,
has
but
to
I
be
want-
approved. It has, the total cost has to be approved.
Correct.
Again.
Yep.
Right.
But I wanted to know about the SAFER grant. Does that buy us an extra year before we'd be responsible
They would
for
have
the
to-
salaries?
It's gonna apply for the safer grant if this gets.
It gives you, it buys you this year. Like, so basically the timeline would be it's the 3 years for the SAFER grant to run its course, right? That's what the grant works its way through. 3 years the federal government pays for that. You basically have a year from now until we get that class started before that clock starts. So you have right now, it would be about a 4-year window if you did the SAFER grant today. If you waited till next year, it gives us basically that other 4 years plus this year. So it gives 5 years to come up with a plan.
We might know what the situation with all the interest rates and recession, if we bought ourselves some more time, or how we would come up with the,
Well, just because you apply for a safer grant doesn't mean that
I
you
know
have
that
to
you're
say
gonna
that
get
they
it,
can
right.
take it, right?
Right.
Is that correct, Debbie?
Right, council will still have to accept it.
Yep, we have to accept it, yeah. All right, so now we're ready for, well, any other discussion before we take roll call?
One clarification, when would you apply for the SAFER grant? Based on what we're getting ready to vote on?
If we went this process, what we would do is we would forego applying this Friday, and then we would put the application on the shelf until next year. So it'll be right around, I can't give you the exact date next year, but roughly 1 year from this week, it gives you that end of February, mid-February, middle of March is when they do the SAFER grant. It's only a 30-day window, unfortunately, but that would be the plan.
How long does it take before you know about the grant?
Chief Johnson, you want to come up here and kind of walk through that?
Are you talking about an answer?
Yes.
What you submitted?
Yes.
For this year, what's due March 17th, which is Friday, and the earliest that they would respond would be June the 2nd of this year, and the latest would be September 30th of this year. So June to September.
So once you get awarded, you have 30 days for you all to accept. And then from that 30 days of acceptance, you have 6 months because it's a big request to try to get all, 12 people and to get that many. So it gives you 6 months to go through that process. So.
I'd like to make one more comment before we vote. If this moves forward, there's going to be 3 fire stations within 4 miles of each other. 1 county fire station and 2 city fire stations that are going to be within 4 miles of each other. That's why I'm saying that we need to have a study done.
ISO actually uses 1.5 mile radius.
Yeah, but we're going to have 3 within 4 miles.
There's going to be some overlap when you're dealing with that, but again,
Overlap.
well, one of those isn't in our jurisdiction.
Okay.
All right. Any other further discussion? All right. Madam Clerk, if you want to go into the roll call.
Yes. Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
No.
Mr. Showalter?
No.
Mr. Hampton?
No.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
No.
Mrs. Wilkins Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
I'm missing somebody. Mr. Showalter?
He already got
He
it.
already did. I'm not
Willow's
missing
not
it.
here.
Willow's
Willow's
not
not
here.
Sorry, you guys. Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3 yeses and 4 noes.
Is that right? So it was 3 to 4.
You said no, right? Okay.
Okay. So
That fails.
it fails. All right. So we're now moving to move to item 13.
We told Megan we could cover this for. This is second reading of the personnel ordinance adding the part-time maintenance coordinator for the fire department, and the sponsors are fire committee members Showalter and Wilkins Brent.
An ordinance amending section 2-111 of the Code of Ordinances to add the position of part-time maintenance coordinator to the fire department. Summary: 1, amend section 2-111 subsection C of the Code of Ordinance to add 1 part-time maintenance coordinator to the fire department. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time February 27th, 2023. Publicly read the second time March 13th, 2023.
Okay, so we had second reading, so we now have to have a
Roll call.
roll call.
Need a motion?
We do.
Motion.
Second. Motion's been made,
Who said
properly second. Conway. So now we're ready for the vote. If any other discussion? Now we're ready for vote.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilkins Brent?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Okay. 7-0, motion carried. All right, council comments? Okay, okay, we'll start on Mr. Showalter. You want to go first?
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Conway?
I'm good.
Ms. Brent?
I'm not, no, I'm good.
Mr. Stone?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A lot of great engagement tonight, you know. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, but you know what? We discussed the devil out of it, that's for sure. Really glad of the work that we're doing. One thing that wanted to bring up is Parks and Rec. You know, there's Kim does a great job and her staff every year putting together the tour that they do and the overall goals. So if you didn't get that project from January this year, reach out to Kim and get a hold of it and have her send it to you. There's a lot of great information in that packet. So because she has a tremendous lift with Parks and Rec to keep all this, the plates juggling in the air. So just can't say enough good things about Kim and her staff. As a football coach that uses Marshall Field for one of my teams. So other than that, that's all I've got. Great job, everyone.
Okay, Mr. Hampton?
Nothing.
Mr. Devlin?
Yes, we are a growing community of 2% a year, and we're feeling the growing pains. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place and we have the services for our citizens. So we have to do our due diligence every day, make sure we find the finances and the funding to support the services for our citizens. So we got a lot of work to do.
Ms. Tackett?
I don't disagree with Mr. Alonzo Allen. I think when we get our first budget under our belt, that you're going to see where our revenue streams are. And I suggest that we move forward in trying to find other avenues of revenue streams in order to accomplish what we need to do. But other than that, I think it was a good meeting. I appreciate our fire department and our police department. I appreciate everything everybody does. It's not easy. It's not easy to sit up here and say no when you don't have the money.
Yeah, you really do.
But I do appreciate everybody.
Okay, if there's no other further business for the council, this meeting is adjourned. Okay.